Chapter 473. In the silent night, other than the headlights, there was only a little light from the reflector on the railings. After driving for a long time, there were no other cars in sight. In the spacious car of the Land Rover, Song Jiwen was driving attentively. In the back seat, Yang Guo was hugging Chi-Chi, who had just been coaxed to sleep, and was resting with her eyes closed. No one spoke. It was as if the whole world had lost its voice, and there was no movement. After a long time, a rustling sound was heard. It was Poplar Fruit putting Kiki back into the baby safety seat and buckling the seat belt. He patted Song Jiwen on the shoulder, indicating that he had changed. After so many days, Song Jiwen naturally understood what Poplar Fruit meant. He stopped the car at the next service station. "Let's go to the bathroom first." Song Jiwen jumped out of the driver's seat, closed the door, and said to Poplar Fruit, "Okay, you go first." Poplar Fruit twisted his waist and did a stretch with a smile. Poplar Fruit was worried about leaving Kiki alone in the car, so he went after Song Jiwen came back. When he came back, Poplar Fruit saw Song Jiwen leaning against the back of the car with a bottle of mineral water in his hand. He was looking at the sky in the direction of Kunming at a 45-degree angle. "Not going to sleep?" Poplar Fruit also went over, took a sip of water, and asked. "Not too sleepy," Song Jiwen said. "Let's wait for a while and get some fresh air." The two of them stood like that, quietly admiring the sky beyond the wilderness. If the river of stars was erased, the night sky would be so dense it was as if it had been dyed with ink. "You know we won't go back to the hotel you gave us, right?" Poplar Fruit's faint voice broke the silence of the night. "I know," Song Jiwen said after a moment of silence. His voice was a little brisk, but not quite as free as he had been before. When Chen Anlin was defeated by Poplar Fruit in the ethnic village of Kunming West Mountain, he asked for the address from Poplar Fruit. For some reason, Song Jiwen took out the hotel receipt and showed it to Chen Anlin. He told her the hotel they were staying at, and the room number. However, this hotel had already checked out when Poplar Fruit left in the morning, and they had already planned to go to Dali overnight. In other words, what Song Jiwen told Chen Anlin was false. At that time, Poplar Fruit had a constipated expression on his face. He looked at Song Jiwen and wondered what was wrong with him. However, Poplar Fruit didn't expose him. Song Jiwen should have his own reasons for doing this. "She won't be able to find us in the future," Poplar Fruit said lightly. Song Jiwen squeezed the mineral water bottle in his hand. In this quiet atmosphere, it made a strange and obvious sound. He laughed and said, "Isn't it better if she can't find us? Whoever meets little Chili will be unlucky. I don't want to come out and have fun. My good mood is ruined by her." Poplar Fruit shrugged and said, "Okay, I thought." "Thought what?" Song Jiwen interrupted Poplar Fruit and said, "Lao Guo, don't tell me you like little Chili?" Poplar Fruit wanted to refute, but he was interrupted by Song Jiwen. "I don't think little Chili is your type. Don't you like gentle, kind, long-haired, tall goddesses?" Song Jiwen said the ideal type that Poplar Fruit had told him before. This was what Poplar Fruit had said in college. He didn't expect this guy to remember all these useless words, even though he didn't memorize many words. Poplar Fruit had only talked about this standard with Song Jiwen while drinking. At that time, his girlfriend was Lu Yunran. Lu Yunran couldn't meet so many requirements, so Poplar Fruit didn't dare to let her know. In fact, the ideal type was just an ideal. Poplar Fruit had never used his ideal type as a standard. In the face of love, most people were blind. At that time, Poplar Fruit was soaking in a honey pot. How could he still think about his ideal type? "You still remember?" Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Actually, I don't. I just said what I think is good. How can there be such a perfect person in the world?" "So you're going to leave your little junior sister and come after little Chili?" Although he was joking, Song Jiwen's tone was a little aggressive. "How can that be? My heart already belongs to someone. My little junior sister will never change her mind." Poplar Fruit patted his chest with his right fist and laughed. After that, Poplar Fruit frowned and turned to look at Song Jiwen. He asked doubtfully, "Hey, that's not right. Why do you seem like a different person when you talk about Chen Anlin? Why are you so emotional?" "How am I emotional? How can I be emotional because of a violent woman I met by chance?" Song Jiwen shook his head hard and said, "You're thinking too much. I'm worried about you, you know?" "Worried about me for what?" Poplar Fruit, who had realized something was wrong and had low EQ, was now led astray by Song Jiwen's words. He asked doubtfully. "Worried that little Chili will pester you," Song Jiwen said with disappointment. "That girl looks cute, but she's definitely a violent maniac. If she pesters you, you'll feel uncomfortable if you don't beat her." Using idioms again, Poplar Fruit looked at Song Jiwen speechlessly and said, "Why would she beat me? Isn't it just a normal martial arts exchange?" "I'm scared too. Look at the way she looks at me. She's looking for an opportunity to teach me a lesson. So for safety's sake, I also thickened my skin and told the first lie of my life," Song Jiwen said hypocritically. "The first lie of your life?" Poplar Fruit was amused by Song Jiwen. "The first lie of your life? So many ignorant girls in college were deceived by you. How can you account for it?" Okay, a real man doesn't talk about his past achievements. We've turned a new page in the new year," Song Jiwen said with a wave of his hand. "Okay," Poplar Fruit sighed and said with some regret, "What's done can't be undone. It's useless to say anything. I just think it's a pity." "Pity what?" Song Jiwen looked at Poplar Fruit suspiciously. "Don't tell me you really like little Chili? What attracted you to her? Her childlike appearance? Why is your head filled with all these things?" Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I think in this day and age, it's not easy to meet someone who's good at martial arts. Moreover, she's learning Tai Chi. Indeed, if it wasn't for Song Jiwen, this bastard acting recklessly, Poplar Fruit would really be interested in learning from this girl again." Song Jiwen didn't know why, but he let out a sigh of relief. He shook his head and walked towards the car door. Before he opened the car door, he suddenly turned around and chuckled. "You should have said so earlier. I'll introduce my grandfather to you. Go to hell." Before Poplar Fruit could scold him, Song Jiwen had already gotten into the back seat. How could the Tai Chi of an old man be the same? Chapter 474. Early in the morning, Poplar Fruit's car was already wandering around Dali City. Far away in Beijing, the diligent Professor Luo Lin carried his signature dark brown briefcase and climbed the stairs to his office. Like Chun Zongdai and the others in the school, only the teachers and staff were on summer vacation. As the head of the department and the vice director of the Linguistics Research Institute, Luo Lin could not be idle even during the holidays. Of course, he could choose to take a vacation, but for people like him who had been on the path of learning for decades, leaving books and research was the scariest thing. "Professor Luo, good morning." The student assistant had already arrived. When she saw the door open, she hurriedly stood up and smiled sweetly. "Good morning." Luo Lin waved his hand and smiled. "You don't have to stand up. How many times have I said it?" Sitting in his seat, Luo Lin habitually flipped through the newspapers that were just delivered today. The first thing he did every morning was to drink tea and read newspapers. This was a habit that Luo Lin had developed for decades. Don't misunderstand. Drinking tea and reading newspapers here wasn't the same as what people usually saw in the government agencies. The newspapers here were all domestic and even international academic journals. They published the latest research results in the academic world. Beijing International Studies University spent a lot of money every year to order these academic journals from publishers. In the eyes of ordinary people, they were obscure and difficult to understand books. But in the eyes of Luo Lin and the others, they were the most important source of information. "Haha, found it." Luo Lin pulled out a thin magazine and smiled proudly. "I guessed right. It finally arrived today." The magazine in his hand had the words "Translators" written on it. That's right, this was the most authoritative academic journal in the translation and linguistics field in the country. He couldn't find it yesterday, so he was late to find it today. Luo Lin still had to find it himself. If it was Luo Lin's former student assistant, she would definitely know Luo Lin's habit. Every day, she would stack the newly arrived journals according to Luo Lin's preferences. But the current student assistant did not know, so she just casually placed them. But Luo Lin did not care about these details. He was not a government official and did not need to be carefully served. At this time, the student assistant brought over a cup of hot tea. Luo Lin kindly smiled and said, "Thank you." Then he took the cup. "Are there any good articles this month?" Out of habit, Luo Lin flipped open the contents page and started reading from the table of contents. No matter how many pages this magazine had, he would not be able to finish it in a short while. He could only pick an article that interested him and read the rest later. A new theory that is not new. Luo Lin's finger slid down and stopped in the middle. A new theory. What a bold claim. Interesting, interesting. Taking a sip of tea while it was still hot, Luo Lin's eyes never left the book. His gaze shifted to the right as he muttered in his mind. Author. Poplar fruit. Instructor. Chen Zongdai. Chen Zongdai, that stubborn old geezer, also came up with a new theory? Poplar fruit? Poplar fruit? Poplar fruit. Luo Lin's eyes suddenly widened. He turned his head and spat out the hot tea in his mouth. It barely avoided the magazine, but it ended up on the table. It's okay. I'll wipe it myself. Luo Lin quickly got up and stopped his assistant. He took a tissue and cleaned up the mess. However, he could no longer suppress the astonishment in his eyes. Poplar fruit. At first, he thought he was mistaken, or that it was someone with the same name. But after Chen Zongdai became his instructor, Luo Lin was 100% sure that this poplar fruit was the poplar fruit. Other than the amazing poplar fruit he knew, who else could be accepted as a disciple by the strict Chen Zongdai? Chen Zongdai had been at Higashiyama University for so many years. Although he had taught many doctoral students, there were very few people that he cared about and personally recommended to translator genius. But even if he was strict, how could he be so fast? Luo Lin knew that when they met last year, poplar fruit had not yet been accepted by Higashiyama University. Even now, he had only received a letter of acceptance. He did not even have an official identity, yet he had already published an article in the country's top academic journal? Could it be that Chen Zongdai wrote it himself, and then pushed the blame to poplar fruit? Just as this thought flashed through Luo Lin's mind, he immediately rejected it. Impossible. Based on Luo Lin's understanding of Chen Zongdai, he knew that Chen Zongdai was an extremely stubborn person in the field of academics. He would never allow his students to falsify, nor would he falsify himself. Moreover, Chen Zongdai was the leader of the country's functional linguistics school. He had persisted in his research for decades. Why would he research a new theory? No one would believe it. Regardless, after Luo Lin wiped the water off, he could not wait to sit down and read the article. He did not expect that he would sit down for 3 hours. Luo Lin did not even drink a sip of water. He was completely absorbed in the article. It was just a few pages of less than 10,000 words, but Luo Lin read it for 3 hours without moving. Finally, he sighed, threw down the magazine, and sat back in his chair. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Old Chen has picked up a treasure. After reading Poplar Fruit's article, Luo Lin, like many professors in the country, felt that it was ridiculous. Faithfulness, expressiveness, and elegance was a translation standard that had been followed for a long time. It had even become a deep-rooted ideology for all language learners. However, in Poplar Fruit's summary, he wanted to overthrow this standard and establish a new standard. A standard that centered around the translator. This arrogant viewpoint was unacceptable to everyone who read it. However, Luo Lin was different from most people. He patiently read the explanation of the thesis. As he read on, he found himself unable to extricate himself. Why did he say that? Because Poplar Fruit's thesis was reasonable and evidence-based. Every viewpoint had a strong example to prove it. The more he read, the more Luo Lin found that his originally incomparably firm heart began to waver. In his mind, he felt that Poplar Fruit's words made sense. This caused him to sit motionless for 3 hours. For almost the entire morning, Luo Lin carefully pondered over Poplar Fruit's viewpoints and examples. He also compared them with his own experience. In the end, he was shocked to find that he actually agreed with Poplar Fruit's theory. Is it because we know each other? This thought flashed in Luo Lin's mind, but he quickly rejected it. What a joke, Luo Lin was also a very rigorous person in academia. Chapter 475. But Although Luo Lin was amazed, he still shook his head and muttered in his heart. Old Chen is already in his 50s. Why is he so impulsive? Luo Lin did understand Poplar Fruit's thesis, but others did not. Luo Lin, who had been a teacher for decades, knew that the translation circle was both small and big. Anyone who knew a little of a foreign language could participate, but there were not many people who could truly study the theory. And there were even fewer scholars who could understand Poplar Fruit's thesis. Poplar Fruit's theory was not like the more popular translation theories in China. It gave the translator a lot of freedom, and they could even change the style of the translation through their own understanding. For most people, this was an incomprehensible move. It was already difficult for them to understand the original text. If they had to innovate, they might as well be killed. Even those who had reached the level of a high school teacher might not be able to do it. This was because it required the translator to rewrite the original text. This not only required a high level of foreign language proficiency, but also a high level of Chinese proficiency. If they could not do it, then they would not be able to understand Poplar Fruit's case studies. This was also why when Poplar Fruit discussed with Chen Zongdai thought that this theory would not be popularized. Poplar Fruit did not teach many students, so he did not know that not everyone had a talent for languages. But even if Poplar Fruit did not know, Chen Zongdai should know. Luo Lin felt that Chen Zongdai had pushed Poplar Fruit so early, because he had already put Poplar Fruit on the cusp of the storm. Many scholars in China would condemn him. Why is old Chen so stupid? Luo Lin shook his head regretfully. If this kid had chosen our Beijing Foreign Studies University, he would not be like this today. If it were them, Luo Lin felt that they would let Poplar Fruit lie dormant for a while. This theory could not be published first, and it could be discussed and researched by the higher-level scholars in the university. After it was further refined and accepted by more people, it would not be too late to announce it to the public. However, Luo Lin did not know that Chen Zongdai did not push Poplar Fruit on a whim. This was an idea that he had carefully thought through. Poplar Fruit's progress during this period of time made him dumbfounded. Chen Zongdai also learned about Poplar Fruit's current level of understanding of the theory from Poplar Fruit. Instead of building a cart behind closed doors, it would be better to let all the scholars in the country participate and discuss and research with Poplar Fruit. As for the doubts that Poplar Fruit might encounter, Chen Zongdai did not care. He and Poplar Fruit belonged to the category of people with strong hearts. As long as they had talent, why would they need to be afraid of voices of doubt? After ridiculing Chen Zongdai, Luo Lin began to regret. He had underestimated this kid at that time. Luo Lin realized that the Poplar Fruit he saw at the conference was actually a genius. At that time he was just a piece of jade. Today he had been carved into a treasure by that old man Chen Zongdai. Now it seemed that this was clearly a genius that appeared once in 100 years. Old Chen picked up a loophole. AI. Why didn't I be more resolute at that time? Luo Lin sighed regretfully. Luo Lin's strange expression made the assistant raise his head, but he did not know what had happened. At that time, if he had worked a bit harder and pestered Poplar Fruit to let him study at Beijing International Studies University, then Poplar Fruit would have been one of his people. The worried Luo Lin looked at the time. After sitting here for so long, he did not expect that it was almost noon. He stood up, stretched his body, and opened the office door to walk towards the dean's office. Dean Qishan was also sitting in his office, but he did not have the time like Luo Lin to stare blankly at an article for the entire morning. At this time, he had just finished reviewing some of the school's recent documents. Old Qi. Luo Lin walked over and sat across from Qiushan. The magazine in his hand was placed on the table. Qiushan glanced at the name of the magazine and knew what was going on. He smiled and said, "Did you see it? Old Qi, you're not loyal enough." Luo Lin shook his head and said, "You must have seen it long ago, right? Why didn't you tell me?" Qiushan was a specially hired reviewer for Translator Genius. Even if he did not participate in the review of this issue, he would still receive a sample issue from the publisher before it was published. Qiushan smiled and said, "Wouldn't it be more interesting to let you discover it yourself?" Actually, he just did not want to hurt Luo Lin. After all, Luo Lin had spent a lot of effort to convince Qiushan to accept Poplar Fruit as a special student. However, in the end, Poplar Fruit still chose his alma mater. What do you think? Luo Lin and Qiu Shan sighed for a while before seriously discussing with each other. I personally reviewed this article. Qiu Shan's chubby face revealed a smile of praise. Do you think that if this article wasn't interesting enough, even if it was Chun Zongdai's people, I would still let it be published? It really is an amazing theory. Luo Lin nodded and said, however, old Qi, you are a scholar in the field of German. Poplar Fruit mentioned this theory in his thesis. Is it true? I didn't pay attention to it before, but after reading this article, I still went to look it up. Qiu Shan was the same as Luo Lin. They both had a very strict attitude towards academics. The German Roué translation is just like what he wrote. Since ancient times, it has always been based on the theory of translation, including ancient Sanskrit. Qiu Shan said, I've also asked Peking University about it. The theories mentioned here are all well-founded. TSK, how does he know so much? He's so young. Yet he's so familiar with both German and Roué languages. He even dabbles in ancient Sanskrit. Luo Lin shook his head and said, compared to him, even an old man like me feels like I'm stuck at a standstill. I'm about to be surpassed. It's not just German. Qiu Shan smiled. He found the micro-movie of Unexpectedly on his computer, and showed it to Luo Lin. My family Xiaoya showed it to me. In it, he said that he knows 13 languages. Sigh, don't say any more. After Luo Lin finished watching, he shook his head dispiritedly. No matter how good it is, it's still someone else's. The last time we met, Luo Lin said. I didn't talk to him for long. I didn't even know he had such achievements. He probably didn't think that at that time, Poplar Fruit's theory of translation was still stuck in his mind. Old Qi, when should we go to Higashiyama University for an exchange? Luo Lin and Qiu Shan chatted for a while. The two stood up and were about to eat when Luo Lin suddenly suggested, why? Do you have any thoughts on this theory? Qiu Shan smiled strangely. He took out a piece of paper from the folder on the table and handed it to Luo Lin. I think you'll be interested in this. The list of participants for the Applied Translation Conference. Luo Lin took the paper and read the title in confusion. Chapter 476. Cayenne Province was really a good place. Song Jiwen had said this many times. He said it when visiting scenic spots and didn't forget to say it while driving. Of course, no one knew if he had an ulterior motive. However, Cayenne Province was indeed beautiful. There was no need to talk about Kunming. The ancient city of Dali and the Tsang Mountains and Irai were also wonders of the world. The ancient city of Dali was the old capital of the Nanzhao Kingdom. Compared to the capital of an ancient dynasty, it lacked a modern atmosphere. The streets of the city were distributed like stars in a chessboard. From time to time, carriages would rumble along the stone road. Simple houses with gray tiles and white walls stretched endlessly. Walking along the street, one could see the traditional customs of the Bai people preserved in the long river of history. Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen had lunch in a tea house in the ancient city. After seeing several bright and beautiful Bai girls in the tea house, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but go to the market and buy a silk-embroidered red vest for Kiki. He also bought a full set of Bai women's clothing for Fang Bei, especially the wind, flower, snow, and moon hat. The bright red crown was covered with a layer of snow-white velvet, like the pure white snow at the top of the Tsang Mountains. The ancient city was backed by the Tsang Mountains and faced the Irai. The towering Tsang Mountains and the vast and peaceful Irai naturally couldn't be completely explored by Poplar Fruit. They could only drive for a Shao Duan, overlooking the legendary sparkling and translucent snow dome in the distance. Even so, after seeing the Tsang Mountains and walking through the Irai, Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen were no longer interested in the barren landscape of Guangdong Province. Even if they were far away, the shock in their hearts couldn't be quelled. However, they were in a hurry and couldn't stay in this beautiful ancient city any longer. After eating dinner and resting for a while, Poplar Fruit and the others set off on their journey again. This time, although there was still a day's journey in Cayenne Province, they didn't plan to stop at any scenic spots. They went all the way north, passing through Lijiang, going straight to Chuan Province, and killing their way to Shida City. That was their final destination. Sigh, I missed it again. Song Jiwen leaned against the car window and looked listlessly at the ancient city of Lijiang that was gradually getting further and further away. He had not yet recovered from the morning and sighed and yawned continuously. Is it a pity? Poplar Fruit drove the car and smiled. We can still turn around and go back. The ancient city of Lijiang was a top tourist attraction that had been successfully declared as a World Heritage Site. If he had not planned his itinerary before coming here, Poplar Fruit would not have let it go so easily. Speaking of which, it seemed like Song Jiwen was even more worried than Poplar Fruit. However, wasn't this route designed by him? Speaking of regrets, it should be Poplar Fruit who was more regretful. No. Hearing Poplar Fruit's proposal, Song Jiwen instantly sat up straight. He shook his head vigorously and said resolutely, I want to go to Shu City. This is the call of fate. Haha. Poplar Fruit was amused by his words. He could not help but hit the car horn and asked, the call of fate? What call of fate? Where did it come from? It's the call of a girl. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. Song Jiwen said proudly. I've heard that the girls in Sichuan are the best in the country. It's rare for me to come here, so of course I have to see them. I don't know how beautiful they are, but I know that the men in Sichuan are all ears. Do you also want to be controlled by your wife? Poplar Fruit teased with a smile. Hey, we're going to see girls, not to pick a wife. Song Jiwen waved his hand as if he was chasing away something unlucky. He muttered, don't be such a killjoy. How boring is life for someone like you who always wants to get married? Who was the one who got drunk and cried that he wanted to find a girl to be his girlfriend for the rest of his life? Poplar Fruit curled his lips and did not expose him. Hot girl, 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 hot girl. Song Jiwen did not know if he was fantasizing about the girls in Sichuan, but he actually started to hum a song. It's a girl. Kiki, who was sitting in the back, was a little bored. After hearing Uncle Mosquito's rhythmic hum, she giggled and waved her little hands, singing along word by word. Yo, old Gua, your daughter sings better than you. Song Jiwen heard it and turned to tease Kiki. He did not forget to attack Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit's right hand left the steering wheel and twisted in a strange position. He slapped the back of his head. However, Song Jiwen did not protest. He smiled and immersed himself in teaching Kiki a new way of singing. In just a short while, Chi-Chi was actually able to sing properly. Hot girl, hot girl, hot girl, hot girl. Hot girl is not afraid of hot. Kiki was a little amazing. She could clearly remember the lyrics that Song Jiwen taught her. When Song Jiwen himself listened to this song before, he was dizzy because of the singing of hot girl, not afraid of hot girl, not afraid of hot girl. He turned it over and over again, and could not remember it after listening to it once. I kneel to the genius. Song Jiwen was so moved that he was about to cry. If he was not sitting in the passenger seat, he would have knelt down and kowtowed to Kiki. Of course, let's see whose daughter she is. Poplar Fruit laughed proudly. At this time, everyone's sleepiness was gone. Taking advantage of the fact that the sun wasn't too strong at 9 or 10 o'clock, Yonggwa drove the car out of the main road and came to a good place she saw on the highway. Wow! After Song Jiwen got out of the car, he ran straight over and shouted, Sea of flowers, this is mine, my future wife's. Whoever fights with me, I will fight with them. That's right, Poplar Fruit and the others came by chance to a wilderness near Lugu Lake in Kaiyun Province. There was no majestic ancient city here, nor were there beautiful mountains and lakes. There were few signs of human habitation, but there was a sea of bright yellow flowers in full bloom. As far as the eye could see, it was more than 10 acres in size. It bloomed peacefully like this, not caring if anyone came to admire it. Oh! Kiki rode on her father's neck and looked at the beautiful sea of flowers from above. Her little mouth curved into a cute O shape, and she was still happily mumbling, Kiki likes it so much. Poplar Fruit smiled. After everyone's enthusiasm died down a little, he took out the picnic tools from the car. Come Kiki, Uncle Mosquito will give you some beautiful flowers. Song Jiwen excitedly came back with a big bouquet of flowers. He knelt down on one knee and pretended to present the flowers to Kiki. When Kiki saw this, she happily left her father and ran over to take the flowers. "Bold thief, you dare to take liberties with my daughter." Poplar Fruit laughed and rushed up, kicking Song Jiwen before he could get his hands on the flowers. Poplar Fruit was not worried that Song Jiwen would hurt himself. "Fuck. Sneak attack." Song Jiwen quickly got up and chased after him. Chapter 477. It's not like I'm going to kidnap your daughter. Returning to the picnic cloth, Song Jiwen fiercely bit the bread and said, "Is there a need to be so nervous?" Poplar Fruit said with a serious face, "Of course there's a need to be nervous. You have to start from a child to guard against perverts. Who told me to be the guardian of my little fairy? All the strange uncles near Kiki may be perverts. You're the one who's perverted." Song Jiwen rolled his eyes. "I think, from your behavior, you're the one who should be strictly guarded against." Poplar Fruit's finger drew an S in the air. "You just got off the car, and you ran to pick flowers. Such a vicious flower thief, if caught in ancient times, would also be dismembered by 5 horses. Can you mix these two things together?" Song Jiwen rolled his eyes until his black pupils were about to turn white. He said, "Didn't I just pick 2 flowers? How is that vicious?" Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen were not really quarreling. This kind of quarrel was just a common occurrence between the 2 brothers. They just liked to insult each other like this, and would not become very serious. How harmonious is the natural landscape here. It's rare to see such a beautiful scenery that no one has touched, but you ran to ruin it. Don't you think this is a crime against nature? Poplar Fruit scolded. Is this a crime? Song Jiwen chewed the bread in his mouth and said with a bulging mouth, "Have you ever heard of the saying, if there are flowers to pluck, you should pluck them straight, otherwise you'll only pluck the branches when there are no flowers left." Poplar Fruit still wanted to insult him, but Kiki's crisp voice squeezed in. "Papa, Papa." Hearing Chi-Chi's voice, Yonghua turned her head to look. Under the warm sunlight, she saw a small and cute girl holding a few flowers in her hands running over excitedly. Her long hair that was scattered over her shoulders was blown by the breeze, creating ripples in the air. The sea of flowers behind her seemed to have become the background. The dog, whose fur was becoming more and more golden, also wagged its tail and followed him loyally. The 2 little guys seemed to have some great news, and were excited to share it with Poplar Fruit. What a beautiful picture! If his camera and mobile phone were not in the car, and Kiki was already in front of him, Poplar Fruit would have taken a picture of it. This was probably the most beautiful picture that was worthy of being put into an album during this trip. Kiki ran in front of her father, and jumped into her father's arms with her short legs. Poplar Fruit opened his arms to welcome his daughter. He did not expect that she would do such a thing. He was almost pushed down on the picnic cloth by Kiki. Fortunately, he supported himself with his arms on the ground. He only felt the soft little body in his arms twist a little. Kiki changed her position so that her back was leaning against her father's arms. Poplar Fruit looked down, and saw Kiki handing the flowers in her hands to her father. The sweet fragrance of the flowers and Kiki's nice milky fragrance came to his nose. Poplar Fruit looked at the flowers carefully. They were not newly picked by her in the sea of flowers, but scattered on the ground when Song Jiwen was kicked down by him. Some of the flowers just now were stepped on by Song Jiwen, fragmented and crushed into the soil. He did not know how long this little guy had been looking for these beautiful and intact flowers in the same place. "Papa, is it beautiful?" Kiki raised her small head and stretched out her hands, with a happy smile on her face. "Beautiful. Kiki has good taste." Poplar Fruit took the flowers with a smile, carefully leaned against a pack of milk cartons on the picnic cloth, and then took a face towel that had just been moistened with mineral water to wipe Kiki's hands and face. It was early in the morning. He and Kiki had not washed up. Unlike Song Jiwen, who ate without washing his face or brushing his teeth, Poplar Fruit wanted to let Kiki develop good hygiene habits. "No matter how beautiful they are, they were picked by me," Song Jiwen muttered. Poplar Fruit turned his head and glared at him, and then gently waved his right hand to slap away Gold, who curiously leaned over to sniff the words that Poplar Fruit put on the picnic cloth. Song Jiwen shrunk his head, tore open a pack of luncheon meat, cut small pieces with a knife, and threw them to Gold, who was also hungry. The two brothers in distress decided to rely on each other. Poplar Fruit was too evil. After washing her face and brushing her teeth, Chi-Chi's spirit seemed to have been refreshed, and she looked even more beautiful than before. Her loose hair hung over her shoulders, and her delicate skin looked just like Adeline's. However, Poplar Fruit was not very satisfied with Kiki's hair. When he fed her, it would often be blown up by the wind, and the food would get into her mouth. Therefore, Poplar Fruit tied Kiki's hair into a simple ponytail with a flower rope. Holding Kiki's little face and carefully looking at it for a while, Poplar Fruit's eyes lit up. He picked up a flower that had completely bloomed from the picnic cloth, pinched off the long branches, and left only a small section. Then he inserted it into the hair above Kiki's left ear. Kiki shook her head, made a long nasal sound, and pouted her little mouth unhappily. Seeing that she raised her hand to pull off the flower that made her feel uncomfortable, Poplar Fruit hurriedly stopped her. He said, "Don't, Kiki, it's very beautiful. Come, let Daddy have a look. Wow, what a beautiful little fairy. Where did you come from? Why haven't I seen you before?" His exaggerated expression and words of praise made Kiki very happy. She touched her little face bashfully and asked shyly, "Is it really beautiful?" "Yes. Kiki is the most beautiful." Poplar Fruit nodded and said with certainty. With that said, Kiki did not touch the flower again. Poplar Fruit knew that this little girl was very vain, and could not stand others praising her beauty. "Wait, Daddy will take a few photos of you with my phone." Poplar Fruit stood up with a smile, and went back to the car to get his phone. Choosing the sea of flowers as the background, Poplar Fruit took a photo of Kiki. Although Poplar Fruit's iPhone did not have the function of blurring the background, Poplar Fruit did not intend to do so. Otherwise, he would take the bill and not the phone. In the photo, Kiki was more delicate than the flowers. She stood a little shyly on the grass with her fingers intertwined in front of her body. The bright yellow flower in her ear was as beautiful as her skin. Coupled with the bright red waistcoat of the Bai Clan girls, she looked like a little bride who was about to get married. Kiki wants to see it too. Kiki could not wait to run over, pulled her father's arm, and pulled the phone in front of her eyes. Seeing her beautiful appearance, Chi-Chi shyly covered both sides of her face, but her eyes had long since turned into two thin crescent moons from her smile. Later, Poplar Fruit would still post this photo on Weibo. He now had the mentality of a typical nouveau riche. "My daughter is so cute and beautiful, I want to share it with everyone," he said proudly in his heart. Jealous? Jealous? He. Chapter 478. After entering Chuan Province, Poplar Fruit and the others almost didn't stop. Most of the time, they stayed on the highway. The terrain of Chuan Province was more complicated than that of Kaiyun Province. It was located in the transition area between the Tibetan Plateau and the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River. This also created a special landform with many kinds of landforms, such as basins, plateaus, mountains, hills, and plains. There were many rivers and tributaries, mountains and hills, and they all looked the same in the wild. If they left the highway, without the GPS navigation, Poplar Fruit and the others would definitely get lost. Moreover, even if they didn't worry about getting lost, the arrangement of the itinerary didn't allow them to stay too long on the road. They planned to have fun in Shudu City for 2 days. If they didn't hurry up, Song Jiwen would have to take a plane back to Yang City to work. However, fortunately, the distance from Dali to Shudu City was more than 1,400 kilometers. The powerful horsepower of the Land Rover was reflected on the highway. Except for some places where there were many cars, Poplar Fruit basically drove more than 120 kilometers per hour. It only took them 14 hours to enter the downtown area of Shudu City. Young people don't enter Chuan, old people don't leave Shu. This advice from ancient times was not deliberately mystifying. Shudu City was located in the basin of Chuan Province. The climate was mild, and the land was fertile. Since ancient times, the flames of war rarely spread here, which created a peaceful atmosphere and leisurely pace of life here. Of course, in Song Jiwen's words, there were delicious food and drinks here, and there were also many beautiful women. No wonder it was called the gentle home that made heroes intoxicated. However, when they arrived at Shudu City, the first thought of Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen was not to have fun. Not to mention that it was already more than 10 o'clock at night. Even if it was a few hours earlier, Poplar Fruit and the others just wanted to find a hotel and sleep. After driving for a day and a night, the physical and mental exhaustion was like maggots attached to the bones. Even Poplar Fruit, who had always been energetic, was not spared. After all, he was the one who drove for the longest time and slept the least. Song Jiwen directly fell asleep and left the bath for tomorrow, but Poplar Fruit didn't. No matter how tired he was, he had to give Kiki a bath first. After leaving Kunming, they didn't stay in a hotel. In the past 2 days, Poplar Fruit only used a wet towel to wipe Kiki's face and hands and feet. After staying in a hotel, there was a warm hot bath to soak in. After bathing, Chi-Chi would become fragrant again, and he would be able to sleep more comfortably at night. In order to wash Kiki's clothes, Poplar Fruit was busy, but he woke up at 4 o'clock the next day. At night, sitting upright in the dark, Yanghua felt that she could no longer fall asleep after regaining her energy. Listening to Song Jiwen snoring like a pig being slaughtered, Poplar Fruit was a little envious. It's so good to be able to sleep. Ever since he started cultivating inner chi, he had never had a full night's sleep. Except for that one time when he was treating Chi-Chi's injuries. Although he had a lot more time to do other things, the happiness of lying in a warm bed and rolling around could never be found again. Poplar Fruit wasn't a person who worried about personal gains and losses. After sitting in a daze for a while, he shook his head, laughed at himself, and then jumped out of bed. The sky was still dark. Poplar Fruit didn't want to run out of the hotel and scare people at this time. So he practiced a little in the open space of the room. The space wasn't big, but Poplar Fruit practiced slowly. His palms and punches were slower than the old man, so he didn't have to worry about bumping into anything. Even if he was traveling, except for the few days when he had to stay in the car while driving. As long as he stayed in an inn or hotel, he would get up early in the morning to practice. His fists never left his hands, and his music never left his mouth. Poplar Fruit's exquisite kung fu wasn't for nothing. Although he started from the top of the internal martial arts, if he didn't practice day after day, he wouldn't have achieved so much. After practicing for 2 hours, Poplar Fruit slowly stopped until his whole body was wet with sweat, and his head was emitting white steam. Today's practice time was longer. It could be considered as making up for the previous days. Where are we going today? Song Jiwen asked lazily in the morning. After taking a shower, he went to the hotel lobby with Poplar Fruit for breakfast. He didn't know where his travel guidebook was thrown away. In front of him was a humanoid computer that had memorized all the guides. How could he not make good use of it? Broad and narrow alley in the morning, Qingyang Palace in the afternoon. Poplar Fruit took a wet towel from the plate and wiped the porridge from Kiki's mouth. He said without raising his head, "Young man, I think you guys are from out of town, right?" A voice that carried the vicissitudes of life suddenly sounded. Yanghua was also surprised to see that it was an old man next door who was talking to them. "Hello, old man," Song Jiwen said with a smile. "Your eyes are really sharp. How can you tell that we are from out of town at a glance?" Haha. The old man stroked the beard on his chin and said leisurely, "Your accent is obviously Cantonese Mandarin." The old man pointed to Poplar Fruit, and finally pointed to Song Jiwen. He said with a smile, "His accent is good. It's more authentic. It's hard to tell the Cantonese accent. But you can't tell the difference. I understand it as soon as I hear it." "Amazing. Old man, you have sharp eyes," Song Jiwen said with a smile. "I think you were also a powerful person who traveled extensively when you were young." "Haha. It's just that when I was young, I went to Cantonese a lot, so I have a deep impression of it." Song Jiwen's flattery made the old man very comfortable. He smiled and the wrinkles on his face bloomed. "Old man, you must be from Old Shu City, right? Life in Shu City is really comfortable. Are you walking your bird early in the morning?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "I'm old, and I only have a few hobbies left. Walking my bird, drinking tea, and playing chess," the old man said with a smile. "Old man, you are familiar with Shu City. What do you think about the two places we chose to visit? Song Jiwen asked. We saw other people's introduction of the planned route. If the place we chose is not suitable, you can also tell us. I can only stay in Shudu City for 2 days. I just want to see the most special place in Shudu City. If you want to talk about the interesting scenic spots in Shu City, this old man can't even count them all in a day and a night. The old man said with a smile. But if you want to go to the Great Wall and the Forbidden City in the capital, then you have to go to the Forbidden City. Then this old man still has a few recommendations. Old man, please tell us, we are all ears. Song Jiwen poured a cup of tea for the old man and said with a smile. Song Jiwen's ability to deal with strangers was better than Poplar Fruit's. With just a few words, he made the old man very happy. Looking at the old man's smiling eyes, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt like he was back in his childhood. At that time, with a group of little kids who wore open crotch pants, he squeezed under the knees of an old Red Army man and listened to his stories tirelessly. Wasn't the scene now the same? Chapter 479. There's nothing I can do about it. Song Jiwen had been showing off in front of Poplar Fruit the whole morning. The ticket in his hand kept ringing in Poplar Fruit's ears. If it wasn't for the fact that she was driving, Yang Guo would have already thrown him into the back of the car to accompany Jin Zi. When they were eating, the old man was very talkative, and Song Jiwen kept flattering him. If it weren't for his appearance, Poplar Fruit would have suspected that he was possessed by something. The old man had given them a summary of the places that they must visit without regret, but they didn't have much reference value. These places had long been explored by tourists and backpackers. Yang Guo and the others had selectively eliminated some places that they didn't have much interest in, and didn't have time to visit. After patiently listening to the old man's nagging, Yang Guo and the others actually received a reward. In Song Jiwen's words, I knew he was an NPC at first glance. Chatting with him was one of the novice missions. Of course, it wasn't that mysterious. The old man had an extraordinary temperament. He could even come to a hotel to drink tea. As expected, his background wasn't bad. He was actually the big boss of a hot pot chain in Sichuan province called Shu Jiuxiang. The old man was happy. He took out a voucher from his pocket, signed his name on it, and handed it to Song Jiwen. Then Poplar Fruit had a chance to eat hot pot for free. It's true. After Poplar Fruit returned to the hotel room, he searched on his mobile phone and found the photo of the big boss of Shu Jiuxiang. Wasn't that the old man? He come and thank me. I'll take you to eat hot pot tonight. Song Jiwen said proudly. He even pulled the ignorant Kiki and danced the eating hot pot dance on the bed. This was also the reason why Song Jiwen was so confident in becoming the master today. In the morning, they arrived at the wide and narrow alley. The car couldn't enter, so they could only park far away. As far as the eye could see, there was a sea of people. It was as if all the tourists who came to Shudu had all gathered here. Jinzi is waiting in the car. Poplar Fruit settled Goldie down. Even if there was no one managing this place, Poplar Fruit wouldn't have brought Goldie along. There were simply too many people here, and the appearance of a dog could very well cause panic. He walked with Song Jiwen. Kiki sat high on her father's neck, so that she could breathe in the fresh air. Song Jiwen and Poplar Fruit squeezed into the sea of people in the narrow alley and complained. This is comparable to the crowded subway in Yangcheng. Why are there so many people? What can we do? It's still the tourist season. Poplar Fruit looked around and beckoned Song Jiwen to go into the courtyard to enjoy the view. The wide and narrow alley could be said to be a miniature version of the entire Shudu city. It was the amalgamation of history and modernity. The narrow alley represented the slow life of Shudu city. There was a garden in the courtyard, a house in the garden, a yard in the house, and a tree in the yard. The hustle and bustle outside set off the quiet and peaceful atmosphere inside. The old black and gray brick walls gave people the feeling that they had crossed over to the south of the Yangtze River. The wooden door that had already been covered with paste, the well-arranged blue tiles, the inverted cone-shaped gas street lamps, and even the coffee shop hidden in the alley had simple rattan chairs, all of which showed the heavy feeling of history. When they arrived at the wide alley, it was a new experience. Impromptu calligraphy, shoe brocade embroidery, puppet show props, These were the spirit of the leisure life of Shudu City. On both sides of the alley, there were tea houses, opera houses, inns, and even modern clubs and spas. The life here had gradually transitioned to the modern era. The alley completely represented the way of life of a new era. There were dessert houses, wedding photography, creative and fashionable entertainment areas, and even bars and nightclubs. C'est la vie, this is life. After passing through the sea of people, Song Ji-wen happily shouted a few words in French that he could still remember. Poplar Fruit smiled at him and said a few words in French. Song Ji-wen was confused. Kiki also pulled her father's hair and complained that her father was saying something that she didn't understand. In fact, Kiki still knew some simple titles and French greetings, but Poplar Fruit hadn't spoken in front of her for a long time, so she didn't continue to learn. Okay. Poplar Fruit held Kiki back in front of him and said with a smile, I just said if you think this is life, you don't have to leave, just stay in this city. Obviously you are showing off your French. Song Ji-wen curled his lips and said disdainfully. It took them less than 2 hours to walk through 3 alleys. However, he didn't feel that there was much to see. Compared with the courtyard, the old alleys in the capital had more cultural heritage. Compared with the structure of the gardens, any ancient town in the south of the Yangtze River could be compared with them. Of course, it was understandable that they represented the attitude of life in Shudu City. It was just that there were so many people that they didn't want to come here again. Are we going to Qingyang Palace just like this? Song Ji-wen asked. What are we going to do at noon? Are you still worried that we can't find a place to eat at noon? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Don't worry, it's only a few kilometers away from here, and it's in the downtown area, not in the wilderness. It was indeed very close. If they walked in a straight line according to the map, it would be faster than Poplar Fruit driving around a few streets. Is it Qingyang Palace or the Cultural Park? Song Ji-wen was a little confused when he bought the tickets. Qingyang Palace is Qingyang Palace, and the Cultural Park is the Cultural Park. The old man who sold the tickets said with a smile. If you want to go to Qingyang Palace, it's 10 yuan per person, and children are free of charge. If you want to go to the Cultural Park, just go directly, it's free. No, I'm just asking. Song Ji-wen quickly took out 20 yuan and bought 2 tickets. After entering, compared with the wide and narrow alleys a few kilometers away, there were not many people here, probably because not everyone liked religious places. Kiki, do you know why this place is called Qingyang Palace? Poplar Fruit put Kiki on the ground. There were not many people here, so he let her walk on her own. Because there are sheep? Kiki tilted her head, touched her chin with her little finger, and answered while thinking. Yes, because there are sheep. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Really? Kiki asked happily. Papa, quickly take Kiki to see Pleasant Goat. Before her voice died away, she ran back to Poplar Fruit's feet, wanting to hold her father's hand, but she couldn't reach it, so she had to settle for the next best thing, pulling her father's trousers. Haha. Song Ji-wen listened to the conversation between the father and daughter, and almost laughed. Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry, bent down, patted Kiki's little head, and said, Without Pleasant Goat, it's just a sheep. So it's like that. Kiki pouted her little mouth and said somewhat unhappily, Then what about Pleasant Goat? The whimsical Kiki began to change the topic again. Chapter 480. The Qingyang Temple was much more beautiful than many small temples. Perhaps it was because the government had invested a lot in it, but even the gate was colorful. The black gate and red pillars, and the railings on the second floor were green. The roof tiles were not only gray and black, but the first layer was yellow. It had the same effect of being the first to show off. The whole temple was very big, and it was divided into Hunyuan Hall, Spirit Ancestor Hall, and more than a dozen other halls. However, Kiki had been looking around. She was still worried about her father's words that there was no Pleasant Goat. She wondered if her father had lied to her. She didn't know where Pleasant Goat was hiding. The main hall of the Qingyang Temple was called the Three Pristines Hall, and the green goat in the name of the Qingyang Temple was located in this main hall. It's here. Song Ji-wen was the first to discover it. Not this one. Poplar Fruit smiled and shook his head. He pointed in another direction and said, "This is a gift from a believer. The real protagonist is the one on the left." What's the difference? Song Jiwen didn't check the information carefully before he came. He walked over in confusion and saw that others were touching the bronze goat. He also touched it curiously. "Hey, is this a goat?" Song Jiwen carefully looked at it and sucked in a breath of cold air. Could it be that someone secretly swapped it? Chi-Chi didn't have the slightest interest in this strange-looking copper goat. If it wasn't for her father holding her back and not letting her run around, she would have walked away long ago. It is said that it has the characteristics of the 12 zodiac signs. Mosquito, how many can you find? Poplar Fruit smiled and gave Song Jiwen a question. Kiki, can you recite the 12 zodiac signs? I've told you about it before. While Song Jiwen was wandering around and pondering, Poplar Fruit pulled Kiki aside to chat. Poplar Fruit knew that she didn't like these cold bronze statues. Mickey Mouse, Yunyu, Big Tiger, Little Bunny, Little White Dragon, Snake Fairy, Pleasant Goat, Shameless Monkey, and Goldie and Pig. Ha 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 ha. Kiki laughed with her back to herself. Poplar Fruit had taught her to mix in some anime images. Although it was a little destructive to traditional culture, it was still a good way to enhance her memory. Lao Gua, I can't find that many. Song Jiwen asked doubtfully. The sheep's head, chicken's eyes, monkey's hands, snake's tail, what else is there? How is this a monkey's hand? Poplar Fruit laughed. This is a tiger's claw. How can you tell that it's a tiger's claw? Song Jiwen said unwillingly. Then what are the others? Poplar Fruit walked up and touched them one by one as he explained to Song Jiwen. Look, these are the ears of a mouse, the body of an ox, the claws of a tiger, the back of a rabbit, the horns of a dragon. That's right. How could I forget? The horn should be a dragon's horn, Song Jiwen said with annoyance. There's also a snake's tail, a horse's mouth, a sheep's beard, a monkey's head, chicken's eyes, a dog's stomach, and a pig's rump. Poplar Fruit finished in one breath, and then he hesitated. But I don't think it's that similar. If he hadn't seen the introduction himself, he wouldn't have believed what he said. That's right. How can people guess when it's so abstract? Song Jiwen shook his head and said, let's go, let's go. The thoughts of artists have always been unpredictable. Poplar Fruit shook his head with some regret. He knew that this copper sheep was just a replica, and the original one had long been protected as a cultural relic. Just like the stone carvings of Zhang Sanfeng that Wu Daozi had collected in the Qingyang Palace, it was also protected. Zhang Sanfeng had wandered the world for decades, and he had been everywhere in the Jianghu. He had also left his footprints in the Qingyang Palace. He had also written 2 articles, one of which was called Qingyang Palace Leaving Questions for Taoism. At the beginning, it said, looking for an old friend, you can't find him at the end of the world. Sighing, you must learn from the immortals. There are those who are stubborn in the void. Having yin without yang is solitary practice. It was very profound and difficult to understand, but Poplar Fruit was only interested in Taiji Fist, and had no intention of understanding Taoism. Therefore he left with Song Jiwen without a trace of nostalgia. Song Jiwen took the lead and stepped out of the gate of the 3 Pristines Palace, and Poplar Fruit followed closely behind. As a result, Song Jiwen made a 180-degree turn as soon as he walked out. Poplar Fruit was looking after Kiki, and was almost hit by Song Jiwen, who rushed in a panic. What's going on? Poplar Fruit asked with a frown. Poplar Fruit saw that Song Jiwen, who was being held back by him, was desperately winking to express something, but he couldn't understand. Poplar Fruit asked curiously, what's wrong? If you have something to say, say it. Song Jiwen didn't need to say anything. A shout from outside the door solved the mystery. Song Jiwen, you liar. Don't hide, I saw you. It was Little Chili's voice. Poplar Fruit immediately understood. It turned out that when Song Jiwen went out and saw Chen Anlin, he wanted to hide quickly. However, before he could escape, his panicked movements were seen by Chen Anlin. Okay, don't hide, they saw you. Poplar Fruit said with a smile as he held Song Jiwen back. Song Jiwen complained with a sad face. It's all your fault. Why are you blocking me? I've been seen. Okay, it's fate that we can meet again in the vast sea of people. Don't hide. Poplar fruit deliberately provoked Song Jiwen. Chen Anlin's scream attracted the attention of the tourists in the scenic area. Everyone saw Song Jiwen's figure shrinking back into the Three Pristines Palace, and also saw Chen Anlin, who looked as cute as a junior high school student, carrying a school bag and chasing after him angrily. Suddenly, everyone was a little confused. Sigh, children nowadays. There were also people who shook their heads and sighed. Chen Anlin's kung fu was good, and the soles of his feet were oiled. He ran very fast, and in the blink of an eye he had already rushed over. Don't chase and make noise in the palace. Suddenly, a Taoist priest appeared out of nowhere, waving a cattail leaf fan used to burn alchemy furnaces. This saved Song Jiwen. Chen Anlin was shocked by the Taoist priest. She stuck out her tongue. She was like a little wild cat just a moment ago, but now she became a docile little lamb. Let's go to a place with fewer people to talk, Poplar Fruit suggested, pointing at the surrounding tourists who were looking at them with strange eyes. I'm not going. Song Jiwen shook his head like a rattle drum and said, I'm not going even if you beat me to death. Go quickly. If you don't go, don't even think about leaving Qingyang Palace. Chen Anlin's eyebrows were almost raised. She glared at Song Jiwen angrily and threatened him in a low voice. After that, Chen Anlin turned around and took the lead to walk forward. Song Jiwen hesitated for a moment, and with a sad face, he followed along with Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit turned his head and looked. This guy was using his eyes and mouth to say to him silently, "Protect me." He even cupped his fists and made a begging gesture. Poplar Fruit found it funny. He also used his mouth to reply silently. You created your own sin. You solve it yourself. Song Jiwen still wanted to say something, but at this time, Chen Anlin suddenly turned her head and looked suspiciously at Poplar Fruit, who was a little far away from her, and said, Are you two secretly doing something behind my back? Don't dilly-dally, quickly follow me. Chapter 481. Why did you give me the wrong address? Just now, Chen Anlin had been so aggressive, but when they were talking in a corner of the scenic area, her eyes turned red. She said with some grievances, Do you know that I waited for you in the hotel for a whole day before I found out that you had checked out? Did she really become a little lamb? Song Jiwen's glasses were smashed to the ground. Where did the arrogant and violent kung fu girl go? Poplar Fruit had a headache when he saw the girl crying. He scratched his head and secretly took a step back. Then he reached behind Song Jiwen and pushed him to the front. Yeah. Why did you give her the wrong address? Poplar Fruit accused Song Jiwen loudly, as if Song Jiwen had committed a heinous crime. That hotel. Song Jiwen braced himself and said, We stayed there, but we left after we went back that day. You know, we can't stop traveling. Actually, we checked out a long time ago. Poplar Fruit exposed Song Jiwen's excuse mercilessly. Ah. Song Jiwen looked at his teammate who had stabbed him in the back. He held his head and didn't dare to look at Chen Anlin. You don't have to give me the address if you don't want to. Chen Anlin rubbed the corner of her eyes and said, I just want to find Brother Poplar Fruit and ask him to teach me kung fu. Do you have to hide from me like I'm a tiger? In Chen Anlin's crying accusation, Poplar Fruit and the others found out that Chen Anlin was supposed to go to Lijiang with her companions that night. Because she was worried that she couldn't find Poplar Fruit, Chen Anlin left the group and went to the hotel where Poplar Fruit and the others stayed. She was so stupid that she didn't even ask. She waited outside for a whole day. In the end, not only did she find out that Poplar Fruit had already left, but she also missed the time to meet with the rest of the team. In the end, she could only carry her school bag and come to Shudu City alone. All the grievances that had been suppressed until now had all exploded out. Sorry. Song Jiwen imitated Poplar Fruit and scratched his head. Although he had been through a lot, it was also a headache for him to have such an innocent my daughter. He could only stammer and apologize. I shouldn't have lied to you. However, little chili pepper, oh no, Chen Anlin. You even gave me a nickname? Chen Anlin looked at Song Jiwen in surprise and grievance. It sounds so bad. No, you heard wrong. Song Jiwen waved his hand and said, What I want to say is, Chen Anlin, didn't you want to beat me up in Kunming? I thought, A good man doesn't fight with a woman. It means that he can't beat you, and he was afraid of losing face. Poplar Fruit once again ruthlessly stabbed another knife. All right. Song Ji-wen was also very straightforward. He admitted it and said, I'm not as good as Poplar Fruit. I was afraid of you, so I gave you the wrong address. I didn't want to beat you at that time. How could you misunderstand me? Chen Anlin's face showed a shocked expression. She said puzzledly, if you wanted to beat me up, you should have done it at that time. Why did you ask for a stranger's address? Apologize. Poplar Fruit pushed Song Ji-wen from behind. Song Ji-wen had to bow to Chen Anlin and said sincerely, I misunderstood you, I'm really sorry. Then can you give me the correct address now? Don't take it the wrong way. I just want to learn Kung Fu from Poplar Fruit Gitch. Chen Anlin pouted her lower lip, still looking very wronged. Learn Kung Fu from me? Poplar Fruit asked in astonishment. I can't teach you anything. Those were all blindly practiced by myself. No problem. Song Ji-wen completely ignored Poplar Fruit's words and directly agreed. Really? Chen Anlin asked in surprise. She quickly took out a piece of paper and a pen from her bag and handed them to Song Ji-wen. You can't write the hotel address anymore. I want the address of your house. When Chen Anlin wasn't angry, her mouth was pouted and her eyes were big, like a little goldfish. She was very cute. I'll give you the address of our house. Song Ji-wen nodded. He quickly wrote down their address in Yangcheng on the paper. The house number was left for Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit looked at it and didn't say anything. After all, the girl wanted to find him anyway. Really? Chen Anlin's eyes were filled with distrust. It's true. Poplar Fruit laughed. Why don't we give you our phone number too? If you can't find the place, you can contact us. Poplar Fruit's words were much more believable than Song Ji-wen's. Chen Anlin looked at the obedient Kiki beside Poplar Fruit. She felt that a father wouldn't lie to her. Okay, I'll write it down. After writing down the phone number, Chen Anlin carefully folded the paper with the address written on it, and then put it in the inner compartment of her bag. Done. Chen Anlin smiled with satisfaction. Suddenly, her expression changed. She turned to Song Ji-wen and said coldly, Song Ji-wen, now let's settle the score. As she spoke, she cracked her knuckles. Ah! Song Ji-wen jumped back in fright. Like Kiki, he hid behind Poplar Fruit. He asked in surprise, What? Didn't you say you didn't want to hit me? Chen Anlin looked up at Song Ji-wen seriously and said, I didn't want to hit you before, but now I do. But I already wrote the address for you. Song Ji-wen said with a sad face. Can't we just make up for it? Let's do it one by one. Chen Anlin bent her legs sideways and spread out her hands. Her side profile was also very beautiful, especially her crystal-clear neck, which gave people the feeling of a rare treasure. However, at this time, Chen Anlin was not cute at all. Chen Anlin slowly walked around Poplar Fruit. Song Ji-wen was also scared to death. He pulled Poplar Fruit in front of him and kept walking in the same direction. Really, don't pull me. Poplar Fruit saw Chen Anlin's eyes flash a trace of cunning. He was well aware of it. He stretched out his hand and threw Song Ji-wen away. He pretended to be unhappy and said, What if you hit Kiki? Hero, please spare my life. When he was abandoned by Poplar Fruit and faced Chen Anlin directly, Song Ji-wen directly knelt down and cried. Humph! Chen Anlin did not kick him as he expected. Instead, she snorted, slowly withdrew her hand and stood back. After waiting for a while, Song Ji-wen secretly opened his eyes and took a look. Then he quickly stood up, scratched his head and asked, You don't want to hit me? I'm just kidding. Chen Anlin rolled her eyes at him with dissatisfaction. I don't like to bully people. Why would I hit you? Unlike you, your mouth is so annoying. Be careful not to provoke evil people outside. They'll beat you to death. Song Ji-wen laughed dryly and was speechless. Chapter 482. Although she did not really make a move, Chen Anlin had never given Song Ji-wen a good look. Previously, Song Ji-wen had tricked her too badly, causing the girl to sit in the hotel lobby and wait for an entire day. She did not know how many strange gazes she had eaten from others. Song Jiwen followed them embarrassedly. He tried to interrupt many times, but he didn't get any response. In order to ease the awkward atmosphere, Poplar Fruit took the initiative to talk to Chen Anlin. "Anlan, can I just call you by your name?" "No problem." Chen Anlin nodded and said happily. "Brother Poplar Fruit, you can call me whatever you want. Anlan, you can call him Laogua like I did. Don't call him brother. It's too distant." Song Jiwen said with a shy face. "Don't call me Anlan." Chen Anlin turned her head and said loudly to Song Jiwen. Her lovely face was wrinkled. It was difficult for her to put on a fierce look. "Why?" Song Jiwen protested. "Why do you treat me differently? Laogua didn't expose me at that time. He is an accomplice. Why are you so good to him, but to me? Brother Poplar Fruit is bad. It must be because of you." Chen Anlin pouted and said, "Anyway, I get angry when I see you." Okay, stop arguing." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Anlan, I haven't finished asking. Why are you here? What a coincidence." "I decided to come to Shudu City before." Chen Anlin was as docile as a little sheep in front of Poplar Fruit. She obediently pulled the straps of her school bag on her shoulder and replied in a clear voice. "And I heard that the Taoist in Qingyang Palace is teaching Tai Chi. My grandfather said that the Tai Chi of Qingyang Palace is very powerful, so I must come to Shudu City to see it." Poplar Fruit's eyes lit up. He asked energetically, "Really? Then I really have to go and take a look." Both of them had a certain degree of obsession with martial arts. Now that they were talking about Taiji Fist, their interest skyrocketed. Song Jiwen, who was at the back, interrupted at an inappropriate time. "I say, shouldn't we find a place to have lunch first? It's past 1 o'clock now. Zai. Why is your mind filled with eating, drinking, and playing?" Chen Anlin put her hands on her waist and patted Song Jiwen's shoulder as she said in dissatisfaction. Poplar Fruit took out his phone from his pocket and looked at it. Song Jiwen was right. He suggested, "It's getting late. Why don't we have something to eat first? I'm afraid that Kiki might be hungry." Yes, Kiki is hungry." Chi-Chi sat in the crook of her father's strong arms, rubbed her little belly, and nodded her head in agreement. "You don't have to rush to find the Taoist priest. Let's eat and rest well. It won't be too late to come back in the afternoon." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Okay. I'll listen to Brother Poplar Fruit." Chen Anlin retracted his hand and agreed readily. "Sigh, I was the one who suggested it." Song Jiwen muttered. "What are you talking about? Are you unhappy?" Chen Anlin pushed Song Jiwen. Originally, the three of them were walking side by side. Now it was Chen Anlin and Song Jiwen chasing after each other. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki and dragged behind. It was strange. Although the two of them kept arguing and punching each other on the way out of Qingyang Palace, it was obvious that the atmosphere was much more harmonious. Poplar Fruit, on the other hand, was less talkative and almost became a passerby. "Let me tell you." Song Jiwen began to show off again. "Anlin, you're right to follow us today. We have free hot pot tonight. Authentic Sichuan hot pot. Tisk, it's just hot pot. It's not like you haven't eaten it before." Chen Anlin disdained. "It's different." Song Jiwen patted his chest and said, "You don't know, in the entire Shu City, this Sichuan 9 fragrances is the most famous. It's also the best Sichuan hot pot. You definitely haven't eaten it in Jin City. But we can eat as much as we want without worrying about exceeding our budget." "Why? Someone's treating?" Chen Anlin asked curiously. "That's a long story." Song Jiwen smiled and bragged to Chen Anlin about his great achievements. "What good luck?" Chen Anlin listened in a daze. For a like her who only knew how to cultivate, Song Jiwen's story was much more attractive. She said enviously, "I can't believe I met such a hidden big boss." "It's not just luck." Song Jiwen waved his hand and said proudly, "If it were someone else, I'll take Laogua as an example. If he met the old man alone, he would at most chat with him. He would never be like me, where the old man was so happy that he directly wanted to treat us to a meal. Of course, this is just an example." Poplar Fruit, who was innocently implicated, smiled helplessly behind them. When they came to the parking lot, Poplar Fruit opened the car door. Gold, who had been inside for a few hours, immediately rushed out, startling Chen Anlin. Hey! Chen Anlin jumped and shouted as she hid behind Song Jiwen. Dog, dog. Why is there a dog? Because Chen Anlin was a stranger and it was the first time they met. Gold was a little curious. After it got out, it ran around Chen Anlin. Seeing that Chen Anlin kept avoiding it, Gold was very strange. It raised its head and looked at Chen Anlin. Then it leaned over and stuck out its tongue to lick Chen Anlin's toes outside of her exposed sandals. Ah! The wet and soft feeling was very scary. Chen Anlin screamed with her eyes closed and jumped hard. Her whole body hung on Song Jiwen's back like a koala, and her legs clamped onto Song Jiwen's waist. Being hung on by a beauty was not a good feeling for Song Jiwen. First of all, Chen Anlin's legs, which were very strong since childhood, were like scissors wrapping around his waist. Second of all, Chen Anlin was hitting him hard on the back, telling him to drive Gold away. This time, Song Jiwen was hit so hard that it almost caused internal injuries to Song Jiwen. In fact, Gold just wanted to sniff Chen Anlin's scent and express its kindness. However, Chen Anlin's exaggerated reaction also scared it. When Chen Anlin jumped, her feet swept across Gold's eyes. It thought that it had made a mistake, and someone was going to hit it. It whined and ran back to Poplar Fruit's feet. It's okay, it's okay. Poplar Fruit quickly squatted down and put Kiki down to coax Gold. He smiled and explained to Chen Anlin, "Don't be afraid, Gold doesn't bite." After yelling for a while, Chen Anlin gradually stopped. When she heard Poplar Fruit's coaxing, she forced herself to open her eyes and looked carefully for a while. Seeing that Gold, a gentle and cute golden retriever, did not look like a big dog with a bad personality, she breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, Chen Anlin looked down and realized that she was lying on Song Jiwen's back. Blushing, Chen Anlin pushed Song Jiwen and quickly jumped down. Chapter 483. Hey hey. After Chen Anlin came down, Song Jiwen directly lay on the ground, gasping for air. Hey, is it really that bad? After Song Jiwen did this, Chen Anlin's fear of Gold was immediately thrown to the back of her mind. She said discontentedly, "Am I that heavy?" Song Jiwen's action was somewhat exaggerated, but he really did not have a good time just now. After standing up, he said angrily, "You're not that heavy, but you hit me too hard." He gestured with his hands and feet. "Your hands slapped me on the back and I almost died. Laogua, take a look at my clothes, they must be red. Also, your legs are so strong that my kidneys are about to explode." Chen Anlin recalled that she was indeed in a state of shock and did not control herself. Chen Anlin had practiced internal strength, and she knew that when she used all her strength was not inferior to that of an adult man who often trained in the gym. For an ordinary person like Song Jiwen, even if she was a girl, that kind of strength was not comfortable. I'm sorry, Chen Anlin said clumsily with a red face. "Do you want me to rub it for you?" When she said this, Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen were stunned. Before Chen Anlin's hand reached Song Jiwen's waist, she also realized that this action was not very ladylike. Chen Anlin's hand stopped in midair, and she did not know whether to retract it or continue. Her face was as red as a red soldering iron. No need. Song Jiwen was the first to come to his senses. He saw Chen Anlin's embarrassment and reached out to push away Chen Anlin's hand. He pretended not to notice and said, "It's okay, I'll be fine after some rest." "But you're actually afraid of dogs. I can't imagine." Tsk. Song Jiwen became the big bad guy in a second. He proudly shook his head and said, "It seems that I have to learn from Laogua and raise a dog. If you want to hit me, I'll open the door and let the dog out." "Do you want to die?" Chen Anlin blushed and patted Song Jiwen's shoulder. "Ouch, you hit me, Gold, come and save me." Song Jiwen exaggeratedly held his shoulder, slowly twisted his body on one knee, and reached out his hand to call Gold. Song Jiwen's interruption. The awkward atmosphere just now, the awkward atmosphere. Under the questioning of curiosity of Poplar Fruit and the rest, Chen Anlin said that she was afraid of dogs. "I was chased by a dog when I was a child." "That's it." Song Jiwen's jaw almost dropped to the floor. He asked in disbelief, "Don't you know Kung Fu?" Can't you just kick it away? I had just started practicing then. Chen Anlin explained with a red face. If you were thrown to the ground by a big dog when you were a child and almost got bitten, you would also have a psychological trauma. Okay, let's not look into history anymore. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Anlin, don't be afraid. Our gold is very obedient. Come and touch it. Don't be afraid, it never bites. Chen Anlin was urged by Poplar Fruit. After hesitating for a long time, she grabbed Song Jiwen's sleeve and slowly squatted down. According to Poplar Fruit's instructions, she gently touched Gold's forehead. Gold enjoyed this feeling very much. It was so comfortable that it opened its mouth and squinted its eyes. Don't be afraid. Poplar Fruit grabbed Chen Anlin's wrist, which was about to shrink back in fear. It's okay. In the end, Chen Anlin finally resisted the feeling of resistance in her heart and had intimate contact with Gold for a while. However, this weakness of hers was used by Song Jiwen, and he laughed it all the way. During lunch, Poplar Fruit and the others found out that Chen Anlin was a senior this year and was studying at Jincheng University in her hometown. Why are you so relaxed? Song Jiwen was puzzled and asked. You're going to be a senior. Shouldn't you be in a hurry to find a job or an internship? You still have time to travel? My family runs a martial arts club, Chen Anlin said with some embarrassment. After studying, I have to go back to the club to help, so I don't have to look for a job. Well, with your skills, it's not bad to be a fighter in the club. Song Jiwen laughed. Do you know how to talk? Chen Anlin shouted in dissatisfaction. What do you mean by fighter? Our club teaches martial arts to strengthen the body, not to fight. However, Chen Anlin seemed to have chosen a different direction from traditional clubs. Chen Anlin majored in management when she was in university. She was ambitious and prepared to use systematic management theory to transform the martial arts dojo from top to bottom. She wanted to build a modern first-class martial arts dojo and bring Chen-style Tai Chi to greater heights. It's not that simple. Poplar Fruit shook his head. He felt that the reason why Chinese martial arts couldn't make it out of the country was because there were too many types. Just Tai Chi alone, there were more than a dozen famous sections. They lacked a simple but effective set of moves. Song Jiwen also said, it's not that simple. Why? Chen Anlin refuted Song Jiwen unhappily. Song Jiwen laughed. Change isn't something that can be done immediately. There's a lot of trouble in between. Your club is a family business, right? Song Jiwen asked. Chen Anlin hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, I guess so. Who's the CEO? Song Jiwen asked. My grandfather is in charge, Chen Anlin said. What about the board of directors? I'm talking about people who have a lot of weight. If you want to make a decision, you can't avoid them, Song Jiwen said with a smile. Chen Anlin gradually lost her confidence. She said in a low voice, my uncles. That means not to mention you. Even your father can't make decisions about the club by himself, right? Song Jiwen analyzed. You're still a girl. Don't blame me for being too straightforward. I'm just stating facts. This is our national situation. Do you think it's possible for a girl to intervene in the family's affairs? Chen Anlin pouted and said unhappily, but my kung fu is the best in my generation. It's useless to be good at kung fu, Song Jiwen persuaded. In today's society, it's not that whoever has the biggest fist is right. As long as it involves interests, it's hard to explain things clearly. No matter if it's your uncles, no one will give in. Poplar Fruit nodded in agreement. At that time he also considered this problem, so he resolutely gave up his sister's shares in the factory and shop. It was better to have a simple relationship with his family. Chen Anlin sighed deeply and said with some discouragement, then what should I do? Song Jiwen laughed and said, why don't you start your own club and be the boss? That way, you can make decisions on your own. Opening a club costs a lot of money. Chen Anlin rolled her eyes at Song Jiwen. You're really talking easy. Chapter 484. What did you say the master of Qingyang Palace was called? Poplar Fruit asked curiously as they walked into Qingyang Palace after dinner. His name is Meng. Chen Anlin thought for a while before she remembered and said, I think his name is Meng Yangzi. My grandfather told me that he met him when he was traveling around the country. It is said that Meng Yangzi was already a master of internal strength at that time. When they were eating, Chen Anlin asked about poplar fruit's internal strength. She had lost to poplar fruit without knowing why. Poplar fruit's kung fu was like a mystery. Chen Anlin did not believe that poplar fruit did not have internal strength. The existence of internal strength could be said to be two different levels. However, when it came to poplar fruit's internal strength, Chen Anlin did not notice it at all when she was fighting with poplar fruit. Poplar fruit did not try to hide it. He readily told Chen Anlin that he did have internal strength, and that it was several levels higher than Chen Anlin's. What shocked Chen Anlin was that poplar fruit had actually reached the realm of transforming internal strength from qi. She had only heard of this from her grandfather. Now she worshipped poplar fruit even more. Wait. Song Jiwen asked doubtfully, your grandfather? How many years ago are you referring to? 40 years ago. Chen Anlin counted and said. In the 70s there was no earthquake in Tangshan at that time. So long. Song Jiwen rolled his eyes and said angrily. It was more than 40 years ago. I don't even know if he is still alive now. No. Chen Anlin patiently explained. Most internal strength masters live a long life. Like my grandfather, he is 80 years old this year, but he still gets up early every day to practice martial arts. His spirit is the same as that of a man in his 50s. Really? Then wouldn't you also be young forever? Song Jiwen looked at Chen Anlin up and down in surprise and said, no wonder you look like a junior high school student in your 20s. Chen Anlin kicked Song Jiwen with a red face and said, what nonsense are you talking about? I'm young. It has nothing to do with kung fu. What really matters is after middle age, when you age more slowly. Old Gua. Song Jiwen knelt down in front of poplar fruit, hugged his thigh and cried bitterly. Old poplar fruit, we're good friends, aren't we? You have to help your brother. I also want to learn internal strength. I also want to stay young forever. Poplar fruit pulled him up with a smile and said, do you still need to learn? Didn't your family inherit it well? Godfather, you look very handsome now. Song Jiwen, you can't do it anymore. Chen Anlin laughed and stabbed him. You have to start practicing internal strength from a young age. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep the qi in your dantian. Generally, there's no hope after the age of 16. You've already played around, there's no hope. Poplar fruit looked at Chen Anlin in surprise. He started practicing when he was 24 years old, so he was already over 18 years old. However, poplar fruit thought about it and felt relieved. He was different from others. Even his cultivation method was unique in the world. Ah. Forget it. Song Jiwen patted the dust on his knees and stood up. He shook his head and said, it seems that I'm not destined to stay young forever, but it doesn't matter. As long as I take good care of myself, I'll still be 18 years old. Chen Anlin looked at Song Jiwen's proud face and became angry. She punched Song Jiwen and said disdainfully, why do you need to be so young? You're already a few decades old. Don't you think it's scary to dress up like a fairy? This punch was quite strong. Song Jiwen bent over and hugged her shoulder as he cried out. Huh. Kiki, who was lying on her father's shoulder, laughed along. She liked to see her bad uncle, Song Jiwen, being bullied. Amidst the noise, Poplar Fruit and the others arrived at the backyard of Qingyang Palace. I see it. Poplar Fruit pointed at the banner in front of them and asked everyone to look. Qingyang Palace Taiji Dojo. Is it here? Chen Anlin looked at the obviously new 3-story building in front of them and asked doubtfully. Let's go take a look. Song Jiwen took the lead and walked in. The gatekeeper was actually an auntie. To be exact, she was an auntie who came to help out after work. Hello. Are you here to visit or to sign up to learn? The auntie greeted them very amiably. Auntie, we're looking for Taoist Mengyangzi. Chen Anlin walked in front of the auntie, bowed politely and said, Taoist Mengyangzi? The auntie scratched her head in confusion and said, I've never heard of this name. Did you remember wrongly? No, my grandfather said that he was in this temple 40 years ago. Chen Anlin said. The auntie thought about it seriously and said with a smile, No, I've seen all the Taoists here. There's no Mengyangzi, but there's a Taoist called Mengmingxin. He's the temple master. He's been in this temple for 40 years. Who knows if he's still in this temple? Little girl, don't you think so? Song Jiwen stopped Chen Anlin, who wanted to ask more questions, and waved at the auntie with a smile. It's okay, auntie. We're just here to take a look. There's no training today. You can look around as you wish. The auntie waved back with a smile. When they reached a place where there was no one, Song Jiwen said, Look, they said there's no Taoist Mengyangzi. Whether he's still alive or not, he might not still be here decades ago. In the 1970s, everything was in chaos. Maybe he left Qingyang Palace and found another place to settle down. Chen Anlin sighed and said, Then we came all the way to Shu City for nothing? Not necessarily. Maybe there's a master like Song Yangzi. Even without Mengyangzi, Song Jiwen said with a smile. You brought flowers for yourself again. Chen Anlin felt much better after hearing Song Jiwen's comfort. After walking around, Poplar Fruit and the others suddenly heard some noise outside, so they went to find it. Taoist Wusong is going to practice Tai Chi again. Hearing the whispers of the tourists and citizens, Chen Anlin's spirit was lifted. She took the lead and squeezed into the crowd, followed by Song Jiwen. Taoist Wusong? Poplar Fruit thought the name was funny. It sounded like Wusong. Poplar Fruit also squeezed through the crowd with Kiki in his arms. He didn't have to squeeze to the front of the crowd like Chen Anlin. Because he was tall, Poplar Fruit could see the situation inside clearly when he was in the middle of the crowd. The Taoist priest inside had a beard that was half a finger long. He was thin, and his Taoist robe was fluttering in the wind. He had a kind of elegant immortal aura. According to the people around him, Taoist Wusong often performed Songshi Tai Chi. Some tourists took photos and posted them on the internet, which helped him gain a lot of popularity. However, looking at this, Poplar Fruit understood that Taoist Wusong was sent by the Martial Arts Center. It wasn't to attract attention, it was just a means of publicity. Chapter 485. Wow. Amazing. The crowd let out exclamations one after another. They didn't know if this was a fake, but Poplar Fruit couldn't stand it anymore. Amazing. How is he amazing? Poplar Fruit covered his eyes as he watched, afraid that the other party would notice his strange gaze. This Taoist priest Wusong's Taiji fist was pretty good. The moves of the Songshi Taiji fist were executed smoothly, and his robes fluttered elegantly. However, as the saying goes, experts look at the skill, while outsiders look at the excitement. Poplar Fruit saw the problem with one glance. Taoist priest Wusong's kung fu was smooth, but weak. Don't think that just because Taiji fist emphasized harmony between heaven and man, it didn't need to use strength. Experts used their strength skillfully, pushing, and pressing. Every move could be played with vigor. However, the person in front of him had weak limbs. He couldn't stand it. Of course, it was also possible that he didn't use any strength at all, and was just being lazy. However, Poplar Fruit ruled out this possibility. In Chinese martial arts, no matter which sect it was, they all required the most basic kung fu, the horse stance. If they couldn't maintain the horse stance, their lower body wouldn't be stable. How could they fight with others? They would fall with just a light push. Therefore, no matter if it was a real expert or a fake expert, the basics of the feat couldn't be faked. Taoist priest Wusong probably practiced the horse stance for a period of time when he was learning Taiji fist. However, he definitely didn't practice it seriously. When he moved and struck, his steps were a bit shaky. People who didn't know would think that Taiji fist was used to scare people like this. Greatly disappointed, Poplar Fruit actually heard the crowd praise Taoist priest Wusong as the #1 expert of Qingyang Palace Boxing School, and a member of the Provincial Taoist Association. If it wasn't for the fact that there were so many people around, Poplar Fruit would have laughed out loud. This was an expert. Even Taoist priest Wusong wouldn't be able to beat a random hooligan who often fought on the street. When Poplar Fruit saw Song Jiwen being dragged out of the crowd by the short Chen Anlin, he smiled. Poplar Fruit also left with Kiki in his arms. You're leaving already? After squeezing out, Song Jiwen asked in bewilderment. Aren't you looking for an expert? That's right. We're looking for experts. Obviously this one isn't one, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Isn't that right? I think he's pretty good. Song Jiwen was a layman who came to watch the show. You call this amazing? Chen Anlin was so angry at Song Jiwen that he laughed. I really don't know what kind of taste you have. This Taiji fist is the kind of Taiji fist that you said your grandfather practiced too. At that time, Chen Anlin practiced a set of Taiji fist in Kunming. It was beautiful, creative, and real kung fu. However, in Song Jiwen's eyes, it couldn't compare to a fake expert's Taiji fist. When Chen Anlin thought of this, he couldn't find a place to vent his anger. Papa is the best. Kiki suddenly interrupted proudly. My papa can beat a lot of bad guys. Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's head. He said intimately, our Kiki will also be very powerful in the future. Did you see that? You have no taste. Chen Anlin concluded. Well, then how do we find the expert you mentioned? Song Jiwen raised his hand and asked. I don't think so. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, I just heard people say that this Taoist priest Wusong is already the most powerful. This means that there are no internal strength experts in Qingyang Palace. Maybe he is hiding his strength? Song Jiwen said. Chen Anlin also looked at Poplar Fruit with hope. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Why are you looking at me? According to my analysis, the Taoist priest Meng Yangzi you mentioned is either dead or has already left Qingyang Palace. Qingyang Palace is actually not big. Poplar Fruit patiently explained to them. I roughly estimated that there are only about 20 Taoists. The rest are the staff of the scenic area. If Taoist priest Meng Yangzi is still here, the auntie from before would have said that she had never heard of this name. Yes. Song Jiwen nodded and said, This is not like Shaolin Temple. If there really is a master, with the current system, it is impossible to hide. Moreover, if he is old, he would have already become the leader of the Taoist Association. That Taoist priest Wusong just now is from the Taoist Association, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. What a pity. Chen Anlin sighed and said, One of the clues is broken. Why are you looking for Taoist priest Meng Yangzi? Song Jiwen asked curiously. I am the main inner disciple of my family. According to tradition, I have to visit the masters of the world. This is also a kind of travel. Chen Anlin explained. It's just that people don't pay attention to these things anymore. My father's generation didn't do this. Short-sighted. Song Jiwen criticized. Traveling while making friends. This activity is so meaningful. I think it should be held more often. Okay, stop talking nonsense. Poplar Fruit smiled and pulled Song Jiwen. Chen Anlin rolled his eyes at Song Jiwen and continued. Then I had a sudden impulse to walk the path of my predecessors and see if I could find some like-minded masters of internal strength to practice together and promote our Chinese martial arts. So when I came out this time, I asked my grandfather about some information he knew about the masters. How many did you find? Poplar Fruit was very interested in this question. None, Chen Anlin said with some frustration. Now there are fewer and fewer people practicing martial arts. Those who are close to my family have contact with my family. Like Meng Yangzi, who is far away. Even my grandfather hasn't met a master for decades, but I still couldn't find him. Not a single one. Song Jiwen said puzzledly. Where did they all go? Were they eaten by monsters? A few of them moved and I don't know where they went. Those who are still in the same place are basically dead. The martial arts of the younger generation in the family have also been abandoned. There are not many who have cultivated internal strength. Chen Anlin sighed and said, This time, the only person I have seen who is more powerful than me is Poplar Fruit. By the way, I'm very curious. You guys talk about internal strength. Is internal strength really that difficult? Song Jiwen asked doubtfully. In ancient times, it was not difficult. As long as you are willing to put in the effort to practice, there will be internal strength masters in the general sect. Of course, if you can practice to the level of Poplar Fruit, you will be a master in 1,000 in ancient times. The corners of Chen Anlin's mouth rose a little, revealing a lovely smile. Now it is difficult. No one has the patience to practice martial arts. So poplar fruit is very powerful? Song Jiwen opened his mouth and asked in disbelief. How powerful is he? How would I know? Chen Anlin rolled his eyes at Song Jiwen and said, I have never seen an ancient person. However, poplar fruit is still so young. In the future, he will definitely become a master like Sun Lutong. Chen Anlin looked at poplar fruit with stars in his eyes. Chapter 486. Master, please take a seat. Song Jiwen's sour voice sounded. He pulled out a seat and half bowed as an invitation. That's enough. Mosquito, do you always make fun of me? Poplar fruit smiled helplessly. Ever since Chen Anlin said those words in the Qingyang Palace, Song Jiwen began his endless annoying mode. He spoke to poplar fruit with honorifics and kept calling him master. After leaving the Qingyang Palace, poplar fruit and the others went to the nearby Dufu cottage to have fun. With the addition of a beautiful girl, time flew by quickly. They chatted and took photos while playing. It was already dusk. Therefore, according to their previous plan, poplar fruit and the others went to a chain hot pot restaurant in Shujiuxiang. It's not bad. It's free of charge and we can even sit in a private room. Chen Anlin happily found a seat and sat down. She looked up and said happily to Song Jiwen. The temperature inside the hot pot restaurant was higher than outside. Perhaps it was because of the steam from the hot pot. Chen Anlin's face without any makeup was even more beautiful. Order whatever you want. Song Jiwen pulled a chair and sat beside Chen Anlin. He took the menu and studied it with Chen Anlin. Poplar fruit didn't have the leisure to court the beauty. He called the waiters of the hot pot restaurant to arrange Kiki's seat. I want a baby seat. It doesn't need to be higher. Just an ordinary one will do. I also want an extra bowl and chopsticks and some hot water. It would be even better if you could give me a small basin. There were so many requests. Poplar fruit was a little embarrassed. Master, what kind of soup base do you want? Song Jiwen raised his head and asked. Poplar fruit really wanted to say master your sister. But he remembered that Kiki was beside him, so he couldn't swear. He had to hold it back and asked. What kind of pot base do you have? Spicy, sanxian, and bone broth. Chen Anlin said. But since we are in Shudu City, let's have a Sichuan-style spicy pot soup. Well, I don't mind. I can eat spicy food. Song Jiwen said with a smile. Let's have the Mandarin duck pot. Poplar fruit shook his head and said. Half of it is spicy and half of it is clear soup. Kiki can't eat spicy food. It was true that Kiki did not eat spicy food. Not only did she not eat spicy food, but she also especially hated spicy food and the fishy smell of mutton. The fishy smell was fine because she would spit it out when she tasted it. However, when it came to spicy food, she would cry as long as she was stimulated even a little bit. If you're a kid, we can have a separate pot, the waitress kindly reminded him as she pointed at the small induction cooker on the side. If it was a separate stove, then there would be no problem. Poplar fruit smiled and said, Okay, give me a separate small pot, clear soup, and I will pay for the extra cost. It doesn't matter. Our boss has said that no matter how much you eat tonight, it will be free of charge. The waitress said with a smile. Did you hear that? Don't be afraid of getting fat. Eat as much as you want. Song Jiwen pushed Chen Anlin and said with a smile. Don't touch me. Chen Anlin raised her eyebrows and said with dissatisfaction. As long as you eat happily, it's enough. Do you want to use other people's kindness to make them poor? How could I? Song Jiwen pretended to be afraid of being heard by the waitress. He secretly glanced at the waitress and said with a smile. Shu Jiuxiang is a big family. Even if we eat for a month, we can't make them poor. Poplar fruit saw the waitress covering her mouth and laughing. In this way, Poplar fruit and the others ordered Shu Jiuxiang's signature dish, 9 palace red soup for the main pot, and the clear soup for the small pot. Although Song Jiwen was shouting loudly, he didn't really have the cheek to order desperately. He picked out 2 plates of each delicious dish and ordered more if it wasn't enough. After the 9 palace red soup was served, the chopped chili and red chili oil in the hot pot kept rolling up and down, and waves of stimulating and tempting fragrance assailed the nostrils. In fact, Poplar fruit, Song Jiwen, And Chun Anlin didn't grow up in provinces where they could eat spicy food. Chun Anlin was a little better. Although the people in Jincheng didn't put chili in every dish, they often came into contact with their relatives who liked to eat spicy food, so they were more used to the taste. Song Jiwen and Poplar Fruit rarely ate spicy food, but they could be regarded as people who didn't have any taboos. If they encountered delicious food, regardless of whether it was spicy or not, they would eat it first. Of course, when Poplar Fruit had just graduated, their neighbors Lu Gillen and his wife were both from Nanhu. They ate a lot of spicy food and gradually got used to it. Kiki couldn't stand it the most. When she smelled the spicy smell, she immediately pulled her father's arm and complained with tears in her eyes. Okay. Poplar Fruit held his daughter's pitiful little face and smiled. Don't be afraid. Dad ordered something delicious that isn't spicy for you. Look, this pot isn't spicy at all. After the small pot with the clear soup was served in front of Kiki, Kiki felt a little relieved. However, her big eyes were fixed on the table, for fear that some horrible food from the spicy pot would run into her small bowl. I know Sichuan's hot pot the best. Song Jiwen waved his chopsticks and bragged in front of Chun Anlin. When it comes to hot pot, the best are tripe, blood curd, and yes, fatty beef. Pick it up with your chopsticks, dip it in the pot, and you can eat it. Won't it take longer to cook the tripe? Chun Anlin saw Song Jiwen add a piece of tripe with his chopsticks and throw it into the pot. Before he could even blink, he was about to pick it up. She hurriedly stopped him. She was so focused on showing off that she forgot about this. She almost embarrassed herself. It won't take too long, Song Jiwen said nonchalantly as he put back the piece of tripe he had picked up with his chopsticks. He picked up a net bag from the side, hesitated for a moment, then reached in and scooped up the tripe that had just been cooked. You should try it too. Song Jiwen used his chopsticks with his right hand to pick up the chili in the net bag. He picked up 2 pieces of tripe dipped in red chili oil and placed them in Chun Anlin's bowl. Oh, it's delicious. Chun Anlin didn't hesitate. She picked up the tripe with her chopsticks, dipped it in soy sauce, and ate it. Although she looked cute, Chun Anlin's character wasn't that delicate, probably because she practiced martial arts. She ate in big mouthfuls. Isn't that right? Song Jiwen chuckled. Let me tell you, you don't have to choose a beautiful tripe when choosing tripe. The whiter the tripe, the prettier it is. It might have been bleached. Like the ones we ate, if they were yellowish-green, it means that the cow grew up eating grass. Song Jiwen had attended many dinners with Song Chunfang when he was young. Although he didn't know how to cook, he knew a lot about the quality of ingredients. You should eat too. Chun Anlin grabbed Song Jiwen's hand that was about to add more food into the pot. She said, Don't worry about me. It's more interesting to eat hot pot by yourself. Song Jiwen shrugged and smiled. That's true. What else do you want to eat? You can order it yourself. After saying that, he also began to pick up food to eat. The two of them talked and laughed. There was no sign of the hostility they had when they first met today. The atmosphere was much more relaxed. Chapter 487. In front of these two people, Poplar Fruit was a bit like an outsider. He was busy taking care of Kiki and didn't even have time to cook some mutton for himself, let alone chat with Song Jiwen and the others. That. Kiki's eyes lit up as she ate. Her mouth hadn't even finished the piece of meat that her father had just fed her. She couldn't help but point at the small plate of oily tofu and shout, It needs to be scalded. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He knew that his daughter liked to eat oily tofu, so he brought a plate in front of her. He didn't expect her to see it so quickly. However, oily tofu was different from meat slices. It needed to be cooked for a while. Do you want to eat fish? Poplar Fruit's chopsticks picked up the fish slices in the plate, and finally picked up a thin piece of crispy anchovy. The chef in the restaurant had good knife skills and cut it almost transparent. Yes, Kiki happily clapped her hands and said. She didn't like to eat mutton, but she had a soft spot for fish, which also had a fishy smell. Poplar Fruit thought that this was a good thing. Children should eat more fish to become smarter. Crispy anchovy cooked faster than oily tofu. In the hot pot, the hot soup cooked the thin fish slices in a few seconds. After being cooked, The crispy anchovy curled up slightly and became a small piece. Poplar Fruit picked up the remaining fish bones in front of his eyes and carefully picked out the remaining fish bones. Do you want soy sauce? Poplar Fruit asked. Kiki shook her head like a rattledrum and then raised her small head. Her small mouth was wide open, like a crying bird waiting to be fed. Poplar Fruit smiled. He picked up the fish and placed it in front of Kiki's mouth to tempt her. He gently touched Kiki's tongue, but the moment she closed her mouth, he pulled out the chopsticks. Oh! Kiki found that the fish in her mouth had flown away. She unhappily pouted her small mouth and twisted her small waist to act coquettishly. Okay, here you go. Poplar Fruit smiled and offered the fish to her again. This time he didn't play with it. Kiki bit on the chopsticks, and with a curl of her tongue, the fish went into her mouth. Is it good? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile as he picked up a piece of cooked tofu. It couldn't be cooked any further. If it was cooked any further, it would become soft and would lose its soft and springy texture. It's delicious, Kiki replied vaguely, but her eyes didn't blink at all as she stared at the tofu. The oil tofu had absorbed a lot of the delicious broth. The broth hadn't been cooked for a long time, so it wasn't greasy, so it definitely tasted better than pure oil tofu. However, the soup was very hot. Poplar Fruit had to cool it down by blowing on it. Otherwise, Kiki's tongue would be scalded by the soup if she took a bite. Taking advantage of this time, Poplar Fruit added a few slices of green vegetables and small mushrooms into the small hot pot. Eating meat and eating vegetables was a good way to balance the nutrition. Open your mouth. In fact, even without Poplar Fruit's reminder, Kiki had already opened her mouth. This time, Poplar Fruit held the bowl under Kiki's chin and then picked up the oil tofu. Kiki took a bite, and the broth in the oil tofu flowed out along her lips, dripped down her chin, and dripped into the bowl. Poplar Fruit quickly picked up a tissue and wiped Kiki's chin to prevent the broth from flowing onto her clothes. Hee. Kiki found it very interesting. While chewing the oil tofu in her mouth, she laughed, and her eyes curved into lovely crescents. You can't laugh when eating, or you'll choke. Poplar Fruit patted his daughter's back with a smile. There's still half a piece. Poplar Fruit picked it up and indicated that he was going to feed it to Kiki. Kiki grabbed his wrist, obediently shook her head, and said, Papa also eat. You want to leave it for Dad to eat? Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. Then Dad will eat it. Kiki reluctantly looked at it, nodded obediently and said, Papa will eat with Kiki. The surprise in Poplar Fruit's eyes was replaced by deep tenderness. He picked up the remaining half of the oil tofu and threw it into his mouth. While eating, he lovingly rubbed Kiki's hair. At this time, any more praise would be in vain. Poplar Fruit and Kiki were already enveloped by warmth and emotion. Chun Anlin was busy eating, and Song Jiwen was busy eating with Chun Anlin. They didn't notice the emotional ripples between Poplar Fruit and his daughter sitting opposite them. The atmosphere in the room seemed to be divided into two parts. On one side was the joy of Poplar Fruit and Kiki, and on the other side was the joy of Song Jiwen and Chun Anlin. In fact, the two of them didn't talk much, but Song Jiwen could always hit the funny point. Chun Anlin was repeatedly amused by him to laugh, without caring about his image. After eating for a while, Song Jiwen suddenly grinned and said, Sure enough, the hot pot in Sichuan is more spicy than the Sichuan hot pot in Guangdong. Just now he bit into a pepper. To be precise, it was a little brown pepper. It was full of numbness, and half of his tongue was numb. Song Jiwen's face was still twitching, and 2 tears were squeezed out. He almost jumped out and rolled on the ground. Ha. Chun Anlin covered his mouth and laughed gloatingly. Who told you to talk so much? You should be more serious when eating hot pot. Although he had been arguing with Song Jiwen, Chun Anlin still picked up the beer bottle in front of him, poured half a glass of beer into Song Jiwen's empty glass, and then handed it to him. Kiki blinked her eyes and looked at Uncle Mosquito's embarrassed appearance. She felt a little scared. She turned her head and looked at Poplar Fruit pitifully. Don't worry, Poplar Fruit lovingly stroked Kiki's hair and said with a smile, The hot pot you eat is not spicy. My mouth is numb. I need to eat something cold. Do you want ice cream? Song Jiwen asked. I'll go buy it. How can there be ice cream in a hot pot restaurant? It's not a hot pot buffet, Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Go buy it. On the way here, I saw a convenience store outside the parking lot. After being numbed, Song Jiwen's tongue was not straight, and his words were a little vague. After a while, Song Jiwen sneaked in with a black plastic bag, as if he was fighting guerrilla warfare. I didn't expect to be able to buy 5 Sheep brand ice cream in Sichuan. Song Jiwen proudly distributed the ice cream to Poplar Fruit and the others. Halftime, eat ice cream before continuing the battle. Not too interested, Poplar Fruit casually took it and put it aside, but Chen Anlin happily took it. For girls, the temptation of ice cream could even overcome their fear of becoming fat. Chi-Chi was no exception. Although she was a little full from eating hot pot, when she saw Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin licking the ice cream excitedly, and even clicking their tongues and saying that it was delicious, she was so hungry that her mouth was watering. She pulled Yongguo's hand, who had just had time to eat something, and acted coquettishly. Got it. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to put down the chopsticks, pick up the ice cream and tear the outer layer of paper. When it was delivered to Kiki's mouth, Poplar Fruit retracted and warned, "But you can't eat too much." Chapter 488. Today was the first time Kiki ate ice cream in her life. Poplar Fruit carefully taught her to lick it with her tongue, instead of biting it with her teeth. However, such a gentle lick was out of control. Not only was the ice cream cold, but it was also as soft and delicate as snow. Especially when one's tongue gently licked the ice cream. The fine snow sand would slide across the tip of one's tongue, turning into sweet and cool cream. With a slurp, one's tongue would roll back, and the ice cream would slide into one's mouth before it could melt. The rich aroma of the ice cream would fill one's entire taste system, along with the low temperature. Not knowing if it was because her tongue was frozen, Kiki wiped her upper lip when she retracted her tongue, and a white mustache appeared on the top of her lips. It was very cute. Kiki's eyes became brighter and brighter. She even grabbed her father's hand that was holding the ice cream, and leaned over to lick it. Her delicate tongue stretched out and rolled back, just like a puppy. You can't eat too much. Poplar Fruit let her lick 2 mouthfuls, then gently pried open Kiki's fingers, and took back the ice cream. Kiki was not satisfied. She pressed on the baby seat's armrest and stood up shakily. She pouted her little mouth and let out a long coquettish sound. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to quickly support her. He handed over the ice cream with his left hand and warned, "I'll give you 2 more mouthfuls. Just 2 more mouthfuls." Kiki, is it delicious? Chen Anlin and Song Jiwen had already finished the ice cream in a few mouthfuls, and then continued to eat the meat. Seeing Kiki like this, Chen Anlin asked with a smile. Kiki was so focused on eating that she did not hear Chen Anlin's question. She half squatted on the baby seat, and raised her mouth to eat the ice cream like a puppy. Poplar Fruit said that he would only give her 2 mouthfuls, so she ate it in big mouthfuls. The tip of her nose was covered with a layer of white cream because of her contact with the ice cream. Although she had taken a bite, her mouth was trembling because of the ice cream. Her eyes were squinted, and she looked like she was in pain and enjoyment. Take your time. No one is going to snatch it from you. Poplar Fruit laughed. After Kiki ate 2 mouthfuls, Poplar Fruit really did take back the ice cream. He picked up a piece of oily tofu and 2 pieces of vegetables in the small hot pot and said, "Eat something else. Don't you like this kind of tofu the most?" Kiki was still savoring the silky sweetness of the ice cream. Her eyes were round as she kept stealing glances at the ice cream that was placed to the side. "Laogua, if you don't eat it, it will melt," Song Jiwen pointed out. Indeed, when Poplar Fruit placed the ice cream next to the hot pot, some of it melted and flowed into the bowl with the steam. Poplar Fruit glanced at it and picked it up. When Kiki saw it, she could not help but open her mouth. But no sooner said than done. Poplar Fruit flipped his wrist and sent the ice cream into his mouth. Poplar Fruit sucked hard, sucking away the melted ice cream, and then took a big bite. Her eyes were full of shock and disbelief. Kiki was provoked by her father. She always thought that the delicious ice cream would be hers no matter what, but her father did not let Kiki eat it. He even took a big bite of it himself. This emotion was like struggling in the desert for a long time before finally seeing an oasis. But in the blink of an eye, the oasis was blown away by a missile. Mist immediately filled Kiki's big eyes. She pursed her lips and could no longer suppress the grievance in her heart. Finally, she cried loudly. The sudden burst of ear-piercing crying in the harmonious private room startled Poplar Fruit. He held the ice cream in one hand and carried the crying Kiki out of the chair with the other. He asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Did you get scalded somewhere? Let Daddy take a look." Kiki kept twisting and struggling in her father's arms. Not only did her crying not subside, but it also seemed to amplify her grievance and became louder and louder. Chen Anlin stood up worriedly and walked to Poplar Fruit's side. He took one of Kiki's small hands and patted it gently. He comforted her while turning to Poplar Fruit and said, "Is she unhappy because she saw you eat the ice cream?" "That's possible." Poplar Fruit turned to look at the ice cream in his left hand that was showing signs of melting again. He then thought about how Kiki was crying when he took a bite of the ice cream. Then he thought about his daughter's gluttonous nature. Basically, he already had the answer to this question. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, Poplar Fruit kissed Kiki's forehead and comforted her. "Kiki, I'm sorry. It's all Daddy's fault. Daddy shouldn't have touched your ice cream. In the future, Daddy will give you 100 ice cream, okay?" 100 ice cream. It was much more than the 10 that he knew. Although Kiki was crying sadly, she was always paying attention to her father's attitude. Hearing her father apologize like this, Kiki's crying finally showed signs of stopping. After a few minutes, all that was left of Chi-Chi was sobbing softly. Poplar Fruit finally let out a sigh of relief. He really didn't know that Kiki was so fond of ice cream that it could even make the usually well-behaved Kiki cry. This situation had never happened before. Kiki wants it. When her eyes were still mottled with tears, Kiki pouted and pointed at the ice cream in Poplar Fruit's left hand and said, "You can't eat anymore." Poplar Fruit said worriedly. Kiki was already full from eating hot pot today. If she ate so many cold desserts, he didn't know if her small body could take it. Okay. Here. Poplar Fruit saw that his daughter's eyes were about to burst into tears again, and hurriedly said helplessly. At this time, a lot of the ice cream had melted. A lot of it flowed through the layer of crispy skin and flowed onto Poplar Fruit's fingers. This made Poplar Fruit feel troubled. How do I take it? If I move it to Kiki's mouth, the cream will drip onto them. Seeing this, Chen Anlin quickly took out a few pieces of tissue and let Poplar Fruit hold it in his hands. Poplar Fruit's left fingers twisted on the tissue to wipe off some of the stickiness. Then he brought the rest of the ice cream to Kiki. Kiki already couldn't wait. When she saw the ice cream, she didn't cry or feel wronged. She only cared about licking the remaining cream. She didn't eat the remaining crispy skin. Instead, she licked the melted cream inside and out. Seeing Kiki's flexible little tongue moving nonstop, Poplar Fruit had a headache. He knew that ice cream, a cold sweet food, wasn't a healthy food for children, but Kiki liked it again. What if she kept pestering him in the future? Judging from his current performance, as long as Kiki shamelessly cried, he couldn't do anything. Then, wouldn't Kiki become a little fat girl from eating ice cream in the future? What a headache. Poplar Fruit was a little absent-minded while eating the hot pot. When it was time to pay the bill, he couldn't remember what it tasted like. In the evening, Poplar Fruit, Song Jiwen, and the others sent Chen Anlin back to her hotel and agreed to go to Qingqing Mountain together tomorrow. "Don't stand me up again." Chen Anlin pulled Song Jiwen and warned fiercely when Poplar Fruit and the others were about to get in the car to go back. Chapter 489. The phone calls were endless. Just as he finished answering Fang Beibei's call, Song Jiwen's call came in. "Lao Guo, where have you been? When I woke up, you were gone and I couldn't get through the phone. If it weren't for your things, I would have thought that you had vanished into thin air." Song Jiwen shouted. When he woke up early in the morning, he found that he was the only one left in the big hotel room. He searched the toilet, the balcony, and even the wardrobe, but there was no one there. He was almost scared. "Kiki had a stomachache in the middle of the night, so I sent her to the hospital," Poplar Fruit explained. After half an hour, Song Ji-wen came over with a plastic bag. He put the things on the bedside table and said, I bought breakfast for you, and a bowl of porridge for Kiki. It's been boiled, so I'll give it to her when she wakes up. Poplar Fruit nodded. Song Ji-wen had seen how he ordered the restaurants to cook porridge for Kiki. He was very considerate. I say, why are you so mean? You didn't wake me up when such a big thing happened. Song Ji-wen complained when he and Poplar Fruit came outside the ward to talk. It's okay, it's just a stomachache. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, seeing that you were still sleeping, I didn't want to wake you up. Song Ji-wen didn't continue to complain. He asked, what's the situation? Did you have a stomachache? Is it because the hot pot is not cooked? No. Poplar Fruit shook his head and explained. It's mainly because I ate ice cream. The cold and hot alternated, so I couldn't stand it. Song Ji-wen patted his head and said regretfully, it's all my fault. If only I didn't buy ice cream. Why should I blame you? Poplar Fruit smiled. All right, don't blame yourself. This is my responsibility. I didn't manage it well. By the way, that little chili of yours. Before Poplar Fruit could finish his sentence, Chen Anlin called. When Song Ji-wen answered the call, Poplar Fruit could hear Chen Anlin's temper from the sound of the phone. Song Ji-wen, you stood me up again. Are you messing with me? Looking at the time, it was already past 9 o'clock. Poplar Fruit wanted to remind Song Ji-wen that the meeting time with Chen Anlin yesterday was 8:30. No, something happened here. I might not be able to make it. Song Ji-wen wanted to explain, but Poplar Fruit snatched his phone away. Song Ji-wen's words seemed to have ignited Chen Anlin's fuse. Little Chili flew into a rage and shouted, Song Ji-wen, as a man, can't you keep your word? It's fine if it's just once, but it's happened again and again. Who dares to be your friend? Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Anlon, listen to me. After Poplar Fruit spoke, the effect was much better. Chen Anlin immediately quieted down and asked, Brother Poplar Fruit? It's me. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, don't be angry. Mosquito overslept. Don't worry, I'll ask him to pick you up right away. After hanging up the phone, Poplar Fruit handed the phone to Song Ji-wen. Song Ji-wen frowned and asked, Kiki is like this, and you still want to go? Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I'm not going. I'm going to accompany Kiki today. I might go back to the hotel later. You go and have fun with Anlon. What are you talking about? Song Ji-wen said discontentedly. Am I the kind of person who forgets my friends when I see a girl? How can I leave you aside and go to have fun by myself? Then tell me, what's the use of you staying? Poplar Fruit looked straight into Song Ji-wen's eyes, and the corner of his mouth showed a wicked smile. Song Ji-wen was speechless. Right, what was the use of him staying? Other than playing with his mobile phone or sleeping and eating, did he expect Song Ji-wen to take care of Kiki for Poplar Fruit? But that doesn't make sense. Song Ji-wen said anxiously. Poplar Fruit waved his hand with a smile and said, it's not a big problem. Kiki just had a stomachache and she's fine now. I'm not going because I want her to rest for a day. Why are you accompanying me? You don't have much time to play. Do you want to stay in the hotel with me on the last day? Poplar Fruit continued to persuade him. Go out and have fun with Anlon. We've already agreed. If you don't go out now, you'll have to go to work tomorrow. Okay. Song Ji-wen thought about it. Actually, Kiki was fine. He nodded and said, remember to call me if you have any problems. Go. The girl has been waiting for you for more than half an hour. Poplar Fruit smiled and mourned for Song Ji-wen. Song Ji-wen drove away in the Land Rover, and Poplar Fruit returned to the ward. Kiki slept for a while before waking up. Poplar Fruit was going to feed her breakfast before leaving the hospital. Does your stomach still hurt? Poplar Fruit leaned against the bed while Kiki sat on her father's lap. She had just woken up and was still a little confused. She gently rested in her father's arms. Her father's arms were the warmest. It doesn't hurt anymore, Kiki said weakly. However, when she thought of the knife-like pain in her stomach last night, she still trembled with lingering fear. Do you know why your stomach hurt last night? Poplar Fruit gently tucked his daughter's hair behind her ear and asked. Kiki didn't answer. She just raised her head and shook it in a daze. You ate too much ice cream yesterday. It's so cold. Of course it will hurt when you eat it. Although Yangguo was blaming him, her voice was still very soft. Chi-Chi blinked her eyes and didn't respond. She only pouted her little mouth slightly. Poplar Fruit knew that the little girl must have understood, but she didn't want to admit her mistake. With a smile, Poplar Fruit stroked the back of Kiki's head and said gently, "So, I didn't let you eat too much yesterday for your own good, right? You were still crying, and it hurt so much yesterday." Kiki pouted. She pouted so much that a soy sauce bottle could be hung on it. Poplar Fruit smiled and pinched her little mouth. Kiki turned her head. She didn't shake off her father's hand, but her heart was touched by her father's intimate action. Her eyes finally revealed a smile. "Okay, let's not talk about you anymore." Poplar Fruit stopped. "In the future, you have to listen to me. I didn't let you eat for your own good, right? Come, let's eat porridge in the morning." Kiki buried her head in her father's embrace and called out coquettishly. Poplar Fruit's face was full of smiles. He knew that as long as Kiki was willing to act coquettishly, it meant that her stomach had recovered, and she was in good spirits. After washing up Kiki, he was feeding her porridge when Song Jiwen walked in with Chen Anlin. Chen Anlin was carrying a bag of fruit. "Visiting a patient? What are you guys doing?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "Brother Poplar Fruit, you're such a bad friend. Why didn't you tell me that Kiki was sick?" Chen Anlin said. Song Jiwen had already told her, so the two of them didn't go out to play. Under Chen Anlin's instructions, Song Jiwen drove the car back to the hospital. "Thank you, Reader Bing, for your reward. At the same time, thank you, Reader Yuanji, for your generous reward last week. Xiao Han really wants to repay you with more chapters, but I really don't have the strength to. Recently, I've been so busy at work that I don't come back until 8 o'clock at night. Now, it's already past 12 o'clock, but I'm still desperately writing to maintain the third chapter. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to." Chapter 490. In the end, Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin were persuaded by Poplar Fruit to go sightseeing. Poplar Fruit took Kiki back to the hotel. Kiki's stomach pain had just recovered. Although her physical fitness was the best among her peers, Poplar Fruit didn't dare to be careless. At this time, Kiki's immune system was still a little weak. Poplar Fruit was worried that she would get sick easily in crowded places. So the father and daughter watched 5 or 6 episodes of Pleasant Goat and Big Bad Wolf in the hotel room. At noon, Feng Beibei called again. She chatted with Kiki for half an hour, and Kiki was very happy. "Is your competition a training session?" Yanghua asked curiously as she picked up the phone. "Yes. It's so annoying. Half of my vacation is gone." Today, Feng Beibei was packing her luggage. In 2 days, she would have half a month of training with the school's representative team. "Completely closed training?" Poplar Fruit asked. "You can't even call?" "What are you thinking?" Feng Beibei laughed. "Of course not. It's just training in school. Besides the teacher's lessons, we have our own lives. I'm worried that you'll suddenly disappear." Poplar Fruit laughed. "It's so sad." "Then you won't call?" Feng Beibei snorted and said. Poplar Fruit quivered and immediately replied, "I'll call. As long as you like it, I'll definitely call." "Hee, I don't like it," Feng Beibei said, not speaking from her heart. Hearing Poplar Fruit's words, her tone was a little unhappy. At first, Yanghua didn't quite understand why Feng Beibei was dissatisfied. But for some reason at this moment, it was as if a string in his head had suddenly connected, and he instantly came to a realization. She was too passive. How could he need a girl to give him instructions on such a matter? "When do you usually have classes?" Poplar Fruit asked gently. "I'm afraid I'll disturb you." 9 in the morning and 9 in the evening. There are breaks for lunch and dinner." Feng Beibei said in a low voice. "No, it doesn't matter when you call. If I'm discussing a problem with my teammates, just press the call." "Why are you so quiet?" Poplar Fruit asked curiously. "Just now, my mother walked down the stairs and was almost discovered." Feng Beibei stuck out her tongue and said, "I'll close the door first." After chatting with Feng Beibei for a while, Poplar Fruit put down the phone. Sitting at the head of the bed, although he was watching cartoons with Kiki, Poplar Fruit was frowning. He was thinking about emotional problems. For Poplar Fruit, who didn't have a high EQ, he rarely thought about emotional problems. Even when he and Lu Yunran dated for 4 years, it was a matter of course. Moreover, they were so familiar with each other that they almost didn't encounter any problems when they went from friends to lovers. Now Poplar Fruit was facing the problem of making phone calls. Previously, in his opinion, Fang Beibei had been busy preparing for the competition, and should be very disgusted with him bothering her. Moreover, he had several calls with Fang Beibei at the end of June, which confirmed this point. Therefore, even if Poplar Fruit had something to do, he wouldn't think of calling Fang Beibei unless it was very important. When we were at the restaurant, didn't Beibei tell me not to call her all the time? Although he had thought it through when he called her just now, compared to Fang Beibei's attitude in the past, Poplar Fruit was a little confused. One moment, she didn't let him make phone calls, and the next moment, she was unhappy because he didn't call. What was going on? To call or not to call? He was so conflicted. Poplar Fruit scratched his head, puzzled. After coaxing Kiki to take a nap, Poplar Fruit picked up the computer and started to search the internet. Didn't they say to look for Baidu if there was a problem? Poplar Fruit searched the internet for people's opinions on this issue. Sure enough, they all supported the idea of boys taking the initiative. Poplar Fruit touched his chin and pondered in his mind. Since everyone thinks that boys should be thick-skinned to make phone calls, will girls be annoyed? Poplar Fruit searched for this issue from different angles. Looking at the netizens' opinions, Poplar Fruit felt as if he had walked into a new world, and his thoughts suddenly became clear. It turned out that he had been confused about a concept. There was a big difference between a girl's impatience and annoyance. If it was someone she didn't like who repeatedly called to harass her, then the girl's mood at that time was annoyance. It was like a mosquito buzzing in her ear, and she couldn't wait to slap it to death. But if it was someone she liked, if she received a call when she was busy and said, "You're so annoying," this annoyance was actually a manifestation of a girl's coquettish behavior. She wasn't really angry. Girls often don't mean what they say. When Poplar Fruit saw this sentence, he nodded deeply in agreement. Whether it was the reserved Lu Yunran or the kind Fang Beibei, sometimes you had to listen to the opposite of what they said. Just like when she said, "I don't like it." If he really thought that she didn't like it, then he was stupid to death. In fact, when it came to the issue of phone calls, Poplar Fruit felt that there was a saying on the internet that was especially suitable for the meticulous Fang Beibei. She wanted him to take the initiative to call her not because she cared about what he said to her, but because she wanted to see his attitude. If she took the initiative to call him, it meant that he cared about her, put her in his heart, missed her, and loved her. It didn't mean that he went out to play and left her behind. Even when something happened to Kiki, she had to look at Weibo to find out. So stupid. Poplar Fruit patted his head in annoyance. He finally understood why Fang Beibei's voice sounded a little angry in the few times she called him. It turned out that it wasn't because she was impatient to solve math problems like he thought. It was because she was angry that he didn't think of her when he was having so much fun outside. After thinking about it, Poplar Fruit realized that ever since he made up his mind to pursue Fang Beibei, he didn't really do much. It was fine if she didn't send him flowers every day, but she didn't even try to be courteous. She just foolishly wanted to enjoy the fruits of someone else's labor. But how could there be such a good thing in the world? This was because Fang Beibei was kind and knew that Poplar Fruit had to put most of his attention on Kiki. If it was another girl, she would have kicked Poplar Fruit away a long time ago. I have to take the initiative in the future, Poplar Fruit reminded himself in his mind. Song Jiwen had taught him this a long time ago, but Poplar Fruit just couldn't figure it out. Fortunately, it wasn't too late to change. Poplar Fruit decided to start with the small matter of making phone calls. I need to be romantic. Poplar Fruit was excited. As he searched online, he made up his mind to ask Song Jiwen how to create romance. Good luck. Poplar Fruit, you still have a long way to go to be a qualified boyfriend. Thank you to Shuangyo Bing for your reward, and also to UNG Shuangyo who gave me a great reward last week. Congratulations on becoming a leader. Xiaohan really wants to write more to repay you, but he really can't. Recently, he's been crazy busy at work. He works overtime until 8 o'clock at night. Now it's past 12 o'clock, and he's still working hard to write 3 chapters. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 491. Before 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Song Jiwen and the others came back. Maybe it was because they had to catch the plane, but they seemed to be a little unsatisfied. What's wrong? Is Mount Qingcheng so fun? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, It makes me want to go and play. The mountain is just that, but the Taoist heritage there is much stronger than the Qingyang Temple. Even the archway is bigger than the Qingyang Temple. Song Jiwen said, I heard that it's from the Quanzhen sect. I don't know if Yin Jiping has been here. You only pay attention to Yin Jiping and the Quanzhen sect? Poplar Fruit asked strangely. And this guy is notorious. Hey, he is the most enviable man in the Return of the Condor Heroes. Song Jiwen said with a sneer. The first night of the fairy ant Xiao Longnu was given to him. If he died under the skirt of a pomegranate, he would be a romantic ghost. Can you show some promise? Chen Anlin gave him a slap from behind and pushed him forward, staggering a few steps. The scenery of Mount Qingcheng is really good. Song Jiwen finally said seriously. Lao Gua, you should go and have a look when you have time. That is the real Taoist holy land. Surrounded by mountains and rivers. Surrounded by clouds and mist. Unfortunately, we only have half a day to play. And Lan can go again tomorrow. By the way, since it is a Taoist place, did you meet any masters? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. No masters, but wearing a Taoist robe and blindly gesturing one after another. Song Jiwen curled his lips and said, I don't think that is a place for masters. With so many tourists, the real masters don't like to stand there and be seen as national treasures. Chen Anlin agreed with Song Jiwen's point of view. She nodded and said, Yes, I won't go again. There is not even a real Taoist on the whole mountain, unlike Wudong, where there are a few masters living in seclusion. With that said, Poplar Fruit's originally restless heart gradually died down. Since Song Jiwen and the others had seen it, he would take Kiki to see the pandas tomorrow. Lan, are you going back to the hotel to rest? I have to send Mosquito to the airport to take a plane later. Do you want us to send you back first? Poplar Fruit asked when he saw Song Jiwen was packing his luggage. No need, her luggage is in the car's car. Song Jiwen didn't even raise his head. I'll go with Song Jiwen tonight. Chen Anlin nodded and said. Ah. Yanghua asked in surprise, You're going back to Yangcheng with Mosquito? She's A's names names SSSA's SSS. SSSSS. SSS. SSSSS. I also want to take a plane, Chen Anlin explained. I've been out for half a month. I have to go home to take a look, otherwise my mom will be worried. Worried about what? Worried that you'll break someone else's. Song Jiwen chuckled and said. Hey. Song Jiwen, why are you asking for a beating? Chen Anlin ran over and kicked Song Jiwen, who was packing his luggage, onto the bed. Poplar Fruit looked down and saw that Kiki was looking at Chen Anlin's actions with wide eyes. Her clear eyes revealed a trace of excitement. Poplar Fruit was alarmed. He didn't want his daughter to turn from a good girl to a violent person. So he quickly reached out to cover Kiki's eyes. Kiki struggled for a moment, grabbed her father's wrist and said in a childish voice, Papa, Papa, Red Wolf hit Grey Wolf. Poplar Fruit was stunned and almost laughed out loud. Wasn't that right? Chen Anlin, who was reprimanding Song Jiwen with his hands on his waist, didn't look like Red Wolf with a frying pan? After eating something in the hotel, Poplar Fruit and the others drove to the airport. On the way, Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin's words continued to be heard. Hee hee, in 2 hours you won't be able to hit me anymore. Song Jiwen touched his chin with stubble and said with an evil smile. Don't be so proud. Chen Anlin glared at him and said. Thousands of rivers and mountains, oh. Song Jiwen swayed his waist and moved around in the back seat. Chen Anlin wrinkled his nose and sneered. Don't worry, I'll come to Yangqing often in the future. When the time comes, you won't be able to escape even if you want to. No way. Great aunt, why didn't you stay in Jin City? Why did you come all the way here? Song Jiwen said with a pale face. I'll deal with you. Chen Anlin twisted his wrist proudly, and his joints made cracking sounds. Poplar Fruit looked at the two of them strangely through the rearview mirror, but didn't say anything. After arriving at the airport, Song Jiwen hadn't boarded yet, so Chen Anlin went to line up to buy the ticket. Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen waited outside. He pulled Song Jiwen and asked, Hey Mosquito, don't tell me you're interested in Enlon? Damn, why would you think that? Song Jiwen reached out to check the temperature of Poplar Fruit's forehead. You don't have a fever. You don't have a fever, but why do I feel like you're acting a little strange today? Poplar Fruit said with a frown. You're thinking too much. Song Jiwen patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and chuckled. I can fall in love with anyone, but I can't fall in love with little Chili. After a lot of reflection today, Poplar Fruit began to have a little confidence in his EQ. He shook his head and said, No, I remember you telling me that you like girls who are domineering and unreasonable. Doesn't Enlon always beat you up meet this condition? Why are you like my mother, obedient and like to take things out of context? Song Jiwen looked at Poplar Fruit speechlessly and said, What did I tell you at the time? I said that the girl I like is domineering and unreasonable, and she's also cute and lovable. Did you see that? 2 conditions. Lovable? That's not very likely. Poplar Fruit glanced at Chen Anlin, who was standing on his tiptoes in the crowd, and sticking his head out to look. He shook his head and said, But she's a cute little bird. She's quite small. Song Jiwen waved his hand in front of Poplar Fruit's eyes to get his attention. He smiled and said, First of all, domineering and unreasonable. I don't mean a woman who hits people for no reason. Domineering and unreasonable. The kind of white-collar goddess who can command the wind and clouds in the business world, who is very charming at first glance. And she's cute and lovable. Song Jiwen chuckled and said, At home of course, she has to listen to her husband. If I say 1 she can't say 2. Then, she has to be obedient and sensible and knows how to cook. Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes and said, How can there be such a perfect woman? Song Jiwen continued, Isn't there a saying that goes, if you're good in the hall, you're good in the kitchen? If you're good in the hall, you have to be good looking. In terms of appearance, Enlon is pretty good, right? Poplar Fruit was confused. Didn't you used to watch the action educational films in Muhong country, and like this kind of baby-faced beauty? Chapter 492. Poplar Fruit secretly covered Kiki's ears with his hand, because the conversation was getting heated. Although Chi-Chi usually didn't interrupt, based on her father's understanding of her daughter, Yanghua knew that Chi-Chi was actually listening most of the time, and could even understand. Watching a movie is watching a movie, but in reality, it's another thing. Song Jiwen said seriously, This is my standard for finding a girlfriend, not a standard for finding a wife. Is there a difference? Poplar Fruit laughed. There's a big difference. Song Jiwen nodded seriously. He looked carefully and saw that Chen Anlin was still in line. He sighed and continued, When looking for a wife, you can't find one that's too short. Chen Anlin was indeed not tall. She probably wasn't even 1.58 meters tall with shoes. Moreover, she didn't like wearing high heels, so she looked like a junior high school student. Fortunately, she wasn't wearing a school uniform, otherwise, she might have been dragged away by the police. Why? Poplar Fruit asked doubtfully. Isn't it cuter if she's shorter? In fact, with Song Jiwen's height 1.73 meters, he and Chen Anlin could be combined to form the cutest height difference. Poplar Fruit didn't think there was a problem. He was 1.87 to 1.88 meters tall, and Fong Beibei was only about 1.8 meters tall. The difference between the two of them was more than 20 centimeters. Of course not. Song Jiwen said righteously. The height of the parents determines the height of the child. I don't want to marry a short woman, and then average out the excellent genes of the Song family. Poplar Fruit was speechless. He said speechlessly, Fine, if you have the guts, say that in front of her. Song Jiwen immediately became shorter. He smiled apologetically and said, Lao Gua, I called you brother. Don't tell anyone. If Little Pepper finds out, I'll die without a complete corpse. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, You don't like her, so why do you care so much about her feelings? Song Jiwen sorrowfully said, Old Gua, you don't know how many punches I took when you threw me to her today. Fortunately, it was only for one day, otherwise my life would really be a piece of darkness. So, I have to add another one to my standards. Song Jiwen stood up and said to Poplar Fruit, You can't find a wife who knows martial arts. TSK, it's scary just thinking about it. What's scary? Chun Anlin had just walked over and only heard the last sentence. Song Jiwen was so scared that he jumped up. Because his legs were crossed, he almost fell and rolled to the ground. He looked carefully at Chun Anlin's expression. He didn't look angry, so he was relieved. He laughed dryly and said, I'm talking about the big rat that suddenly came out of the grass on the hillside when we were climbing the mountain today. You were so scared of the big rat. How can you say it's scary now? Chun Anlin curled his lips in disdain and commented, You're really not manly. Song Jiwen also muttered in his heart, I don't know who was scared out of his wits when he saw a dog. However, he didn't dare to say this out loud. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to leave today. Yonggwa looked at them suspiciously and thought, Could it be that I'm wrong? Song Jiwen still took the 7 o'clock flight home. It wasn't like they were going to part forever. Poplar Fruit and the others pushed him to the ticket gate with a smile. Chun Anlin was going to be an hour later. Poplar Fruit planned to leave after sending her off. Kiki sat on her father's lap and looked left and right. In the end, she was so bored that she was sleepy. Poplar Fruit wrapped her with a layer of clothes, and then snuggled in his arms to sleep. Chun Anlin and Poplar Fruit also chatted casually. Without Song Jiwen's jokes, Poplar Fruit and her had a lot less to talk about. He even felt that there was nothing else to talk about other than Tai Chi. Oh right. Poplar Fruit's eyes lit up. He asked with a smile, What do you think of my brother? What do you mean? Chun Anlin didn't like to beat around the bush. She asked directly, What do you think of him? Do you want to go further with him? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Aya. Brother Poplar Fruit, why are you thinking of this? Chun Anlin wrinkled her nose and cried out unhappily. Poplar Fruit quickly raised his hands and said innocently, I think you guys seem to have a lot of fun today. I thought you guys had some sparks. Song Jiwen? Chun Anlin curled her lips and said, Brother Poplar Fruit, don't think so much. When I look for a boyfriend, I definitely won't look for someone like him. TSK, the two's reactions were exactly the same. Poplar Fruit smiled and asked, What's his type? Arrogant, long-winded, annoying and cowardly. He can't even beat me. Chun Anlin casually pointed out many of his shortcomings. Actually, he's not bad. Poplar Fruit defended his brother. He's not a coward. There aren't many men in the world who can beat you. Indeed, Chun Anlin's skills could be considered a genius in today's world. Poplar Fruit felt that even the big brother of the Xingyi martial arts school couldn't beat Chun Anlin. That won't do. Chun Anlin said seriously. My man must be a hero who's more powerful than me. Chun Anlin suddenly looked at Poplar Fruit strangely. Poplar Fruit was almost shocked. He quickly waved his hand and said, Why are you looking at me? It's impossible for the two of us. I already have a girlfriend. It seems that Fong Beibei hasn't officially agreed yet. Poplar Fruit kept saying this sentence. Chun Anlin said with regret, I know, and I already have a child. Sai, it's rare to meet someone as powerful as you. You're also so handsome. How can you already have a flower? So Mosquito has no chance? Poplar Fruit didn't give up and asked, Why do you always match me with him? Chun Anlin asked strangely, Do we look like a couple? Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, Nope. But didn't you say that you'll be coming to Yangqing often? I thought that you and Mosquito had some secret. Chun Anlin helplessly smiled and cried, Poplar Fruit, I went to Yangqing to find you. It has nothing to do with him. Why are you looking for me? Poplar Fruit said in fear. To train, Chen Anlin said seriously. I feel that your understanding of Taiji Fist is deeper than anyone I've met. If I can learn from you often, I'll definitely improve faster than if I practice at home. So that's the case. Poplar Fruit looked at the girl who was obsessed with Taiji Fist in shame. Actually, Poplar Fruit was also obsessed with martial arts, but he wasn't as passionate as Chen Anlin. It's fine. Come and find me when you're in Yangcheng. Yanghua smiled and said, we can be considered friends. Come to Yangcheng. I guarantee that you'll come happily and leave happily. So it turns out that he was overthinking it. Poplar Fruit, who didn't have enough EQ, sighed secretly. Chapter 493. Chen Anlin also left. Back at the hotel, Poplar Fruit suddenly realized that he was alone. A man, a dog, and a sleeping Kiki. However, Poplar Fruit's life goal was to translate and learn, so he was quite used to this kind of loneliness. It was a quiet night until the sun rose. Poplar Fruit didn't have to rush to the next scenic spot. He gave Kiki a bath and slowly dried her hair. He didn't leave until 10 o'clock. The place they were going to today was called the Shudu Giant Panda Base. Originally, they were going to the Wulong Reserve. However, considering that the Wulong Reserve was a bit far, and they had to travel a long way to see the pandas, Poplar Fruit chose the panda base recommended by the backpackers. The panda base was about 10 kilometers outside of the city. They arrived in less than half an hour by car. When they arrived at the base, Poplar Fruit was pleasantly surprised to find that instead of a cold base, it was more like a beautiful mountain villa where people and nature coexisted in harmony. It was said that the entire base was man-made, but Poplar Fruit couldn't see any signs of it being man-made. Sitting on the electric scooter, they could see that there were hills, lakes, streams, dense vegetation, and even the bamboo forest that the pandas loved. Looking at the trees that almost swallowed up the narrow cement road, Yanghua had a feeling that she was in the wilderness where there were no traces of people. Of course, in some places that were specially designated as tourist attractions, it was a different kind of scenery. On the unusually smooth lawn, there were a few lifelike bush elephants. They either raised their heads and howled, or shook their heads and wagged their tails. This was the pride of the clever gardeners. There was also a lush and verdant bamboo forest. Tall and thin bamboos bent at both ends of the road, forming a dark green arch between each other. The winding road seemed to emit a mottled halo, but there was no end in sight. However, no matter how artistic the scenery was, it couldn't compare to the main characters here, the pandas. In order to see the protagonists, Poplar Fruit, and the others passed by Swan Lake in an electric scooter. They didn't stop but took a long detour to the area where the pandas were active. Along the way, Kiki was very excited. She hugged her father's left hand, and kept asking him about the panda. Papa, is the panda fat? Does it like eating and not running like Goldie? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Pandas like to eat bamboo, while Goldie likes to eat meat. The difference is huge. Besides, pandas love to climb trees. Papa, look, it's a panda. Kiki's eyes suddenly lit up. She excitedly patted her father's hand, and pointed at the fence on the side of the road. Poplar Fruit turned around and couldn't help but laugh. How was that a panda? A yellow raccoon with a cat's beard, a bear's face, and yellow fur was climbing gracefully on the railing. Rubbing Kiki's little head, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Kiki, that's not a panda, that's a raccoon. Pandas wear the same clothes as you, with black and white circles. Before leaving today, Poplar Fruit specially took out Kiki's panda sweater from the suitcase and put it on her. This sweater was originally designed according to the black and white color of pandas. With the panda hat with two small black ears, Kiki looked like a panda cub that had been wrongly carried. Poplar Fruit brought this sweater all the way from Yangcheng just for this moment. Poplar Fruit and Kiki were sitting behind the electric scooter driver, so he heard the conversation between the father and daughter. The driver couldn't help but interrupt. Brother, in fact, your daughter is right. That's a panda, a red panda, not a raccoon. Poplar Fruit was stunned. He scratched his head and asked awkwardly, Sir, it's really not a raccoon? Poplar Fruit thought that the panda in front of him looked exactly like the crispy noodle that he had eaten when he was young. No, it's called a red panda. The driver smiled as he took out a flyer from the front drawer and handed it to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit flipped through it and saw that it really was a red panda. Its snout was shorter, and its whole body was reddish-brown with white lines on its face. Poplar Fruit was embarrassed. Kiki was also looking at the flyer curiously. Poplar Fruit could only explain to her. Kiki, red pandas are different from pandas. Pandas are chubbier and cuter. When they arrived at the pandas area, Poplar Fruit followed the other tourists out of the scooter. They walked leisurely on the long and swaying suspension bridge, looking down at the valley where the pandas were playing. Remember not to shout or use the flash to take photos, the tour guide said with a smile. And this gentleman, please take good care of the child. Don't get too close to the railings of the suspension bridge. She was talking about Poplar Fruit. The tour guide was worried that he wouldn't be able to hold Kiki properly and accidentally drop Kiki. Although it was almost impossible for Poplar Fruit to make such a mistake, he still listened to the tour guide's instructions seriously. There were already tourists in front of them who were happily exclaiming in a low voice, "Look, pandas!" Poplar Fruit walked to the middle of the suspension bridge with Kiki in his arms and looked in the direction of the tourists' gazes. They saw a group of pandas walking out of the small valley where the bamboo forest was sparse and the shrubs were mostly short. Poplar Fruit counted that there were as many as 6 of them. They lined up in a long line and slowly walked along the small stream. "Kiki, look." Poplar Fruit smiled and pointed to Kiki. "That's a panda." "Wow, it's so big." Kiki's little mouth curled into an O shape. She happily pulled her father's hand and swayed it. "It's really chubby." "Of course, why would I lie to you?" Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Look, the pandas are eating bamboo." The group of pandas below did not pay any attention to the tourists standing above them. Perhaps they were used to it, as they slowly spread out. A few of them were lying on the rocks, or lying on their bellies to bask in the sun. Their lazy posture made them seem even more charmingly naive. A few of them were gnawing on the bamboo leaves at the bottom. They were so greedy that they almost gnawed on their claws. Kiki looked and asked curiously, "Papa, is bamboo delicious?" This was really a big problem. Poplar Fruit had never eaten bamboo before. How would he know if it was delicious? Poplar Fruit could only smile and say, "Pandas like it very much. It should be delicious." Kiki innocently looked up and said, "Papa, Kiki also wants to eat bamboo." Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "No problem. When we go back, Papa will cook bamboo shoots for you." In fact, it was more interesting to change the concept than to give a straightforward answer. Just like Kiki's mind was now full of childish fantasies, Poplar Fruit hoped that she could maintain this curiosity and happiness, rather than using reality to extinguish her imagination. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.